All right, what's going on? It is drive time. It's a Monday afternoon. It's about 10 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Pretty nice outside for a December Monday. It's about 47 degrees. Got a little sunshine here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. Porter Larson behind the glass. Good to be back after some time off for the holiday last week. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Some time off, maybe, potentially spending some time with family and friends. And great to be back in the saddle on this very busy Monday afternoon. We got a lot to do on this Monday. Of course, we're going to look back now that the season is over for Utah football. Some of the fun moments. Yes, there were some fun moments from the Ute season that's now behind us. And kind of a conversation about what lies ahead for one of the most important off seasons in Utah football history, quite frankly, one of the most important off seasons in quite some time after a very disappointing season. It did come to an end last Friday with a win over UCF on the road. So you send the seniors out with a win. Mekhi Bernard goes over 1,000 yards, 17th Utah running back to do so. So a silver lining to what was a very frustrating year for Kyle Whittingham and his staff. What's next for Coach Witt? Who's going to be the offensive coordinator? Transfer portal news is already spilling in fast and furious. Miller Moss is going to enter the transfer portal. USC's quarterback has already announced that he's taken off after a very disappointing season for Southern Cal. Not sure what USC is going to do about Lincoln Riley, a massive buyout should they decide to move on from him. But the news is already coming in fast and furious. Early signing day right around the corner, transfer portal window opening, and Utah has to be on top of it right away. So we'll get to some college football on the show today. It was a weekend of flag planting and brawling. Apparently that's frowned upon these days in college football. Rivalry weekend for a lot of teams across the landscape of college football. The new iteration of the CFP rankings will be released tomorrow evening. So we'll talk about some of the ramifications from the weekend that is now behind us, do a little bowl projections, talk about what's going to coming up this weekend. There's still some college football that we'll have to talk about, some conference championship games, and no in-state teams will be involved. Both Utah and BYU looking back as far as what could have been, and we'll always look back on the season through the prism of what could have been as Utah planted their flag preseason as the Big 12 favorite and then just played with their food all year. Didn't go well, lost 8 straight games. BYU didn't start off the season as the Big 12 favorite, but they firmly entrenched themselves as that team after a 9-0 start, but they finished 1-2. Now they wait to kind of figure out their bowl situation moving forward. They did beat Houston, a chippy game at LaVell Edwards Stadium on a chilly Saturday night in Provo. And so we'll talk about some of the bowl projections for BYU. We'll talk about what's next for Utah. Could an old friend be returning to coach Utah State? An online rumor, kids, so you know that there's merit there. Bronco Mendenhall to Utah State. Jay Hill to Utah State. A lot of rumors about the next head coach for the Aggies after a tough year. Really disappointing off-season for them last off-season with the chaos with Coach Anderson and, of course, Jerry Bovee and such, and they could never really find their footing. So a lot of college football on the show today. Your weekend in pro football will come to a close tonight. Also chaos in the NFL. Took a flight yesterday on a Sunday during the main NFL window, so caught a lot of the Sunday slate of pro football. Tonight it's the Browns and the Broncos at Mile High in Denver. Denver's a 6-point favorite over the visiting Cleveland Browns. So we'll get to some pro football on the show today as well. Busy guest list. We're going to do some jazz. Will Hardy snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory last night against the Lakers. It's really a weird thing when you can actually turn on a jazz game and be excited that the other team is playing their stars. But LeBron and AD played. I was like, oh, sweet. Laker fans, Jazz fans that bought tickets to go down there were able to see LeBron and AD. The Jazz lost their 4th straight game. They're 4-16. They're really bad. We'll do some Jazz basketball and some NBA hoops on the show today as well. So we'll start things off today with Stevenson Sylvester, one of the greatest to ever do it up at the University of Utah, member of our broadcast team. We'll see what Sly's take is on the season that now is behind us and the offseason that is now upon us for Utah football. Do a little BYU slide today as well. Tom Haberstroh drops your NBA daily assist. So we'll do some Jazz and some NBA with Tom today. We'll do our Big 12 power poll. Man, so excited about that segment to start the year. And then the air just came out of our sails. But we'll bring you that coming up at 3:30 today, our final Big 12 power poll. One of my favorites to talk college football is Spencer Hall. Spencer joins us today in the 4 o'clock hour. And then our buddy Andy Larson from the Salt Lake Tribune will actually stop by as well to do a little Jazz, maybe a little RSL offseason with our buddy Andy today as well. Stevenson, Sylvester, Tom Haberstroh, Spencer Hall, Andy Larson, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Happy Monday. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving week/weekend last week. Good to be back. And that guy, Porter Larson, who filled in admirably in this seat last week. Porter, happy Monday. How was your holiday?
Happy Monday to you. The holiday was good. It was some. I'm still kind of reeling from the football that we saw from really like 2 weeks ago to last night. Some of the most like compelling and entertaining and controversial and chaotic football that I think I've seen in my life, Spence, over the past couple of weeks. And something tells me that with the expanded college football playoff, with the wide open NFL playoffs, it's only going to get crazier and more fun, which it makes me really excited about the next 2 months of the sport. But some hoops, some Thanksgiving, some other sports stuff to get to as well, of course.
I was the MVP of the Turkey Bowl back home. Yeah, I was the MVP.
Really?
Yeah, threw for 4 touchdowns,
Any
ran
crab
for
cakes?
1. Crab cakes in football, that's what Connecticut does, but I threw for 4 touchdowns. The other option would be my 7-year-old nephew who caught 3 of my touchdown passes.
There we go.
But I think...
So I'm picturing you with like a bunch of like toddlers and maybe younger teenagers.
No, there was a 13-year-old there.
Okay.
No, but look, it doesn't matter what age, you got to show up, man. I was throwing dimes to my 7-year-old nephew.
I respect it.
So he caught 3 touchdowns, but I threw for 4 and ran for 1. And I made my 12-year-old niece look silly on I broke her ankles.
Good.
Backyard. So MVP of the Turkey Bowl, no big deal.
If you're not ready to break down and make a tackle on Thanksgiving morning, get on the porch.
It's game day, man. Yeah. I was Bradley Cooper from Wedding Crashers.
There you go.
Just so you know. So I hope you had a great Thanksgiving week, Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks for making us a part of your Monday. Our first guest will be Stevenson Sylvester. But before we get to slide, courtesy of our friends at Standard Restaurant Supply at your tailgate headquarters. Get everything you need to make your tailgate epic. Stop by their great location of 3500 Southwest Temple or online at standardrestaurant.com. It's time now for your opening tip. Utah football season ended on Friday in Orlando with a win over UCF. So you send out the seniors with a win. Some cool moments in a vacuum here or there. Mekhi Bernard goes over 1,000 yards. I'm not sure that any of us thought Mekhi was going to be that type of back. But he really has been one of the bright spots for Utah football all year. Mekhi becomes the 17th back in Utah football history to rush for over 1,000 yards, and the first since Tavion Thomas in 2021. So a cool moment for Mekhi Bernard. Luke Batari, my guy, the Ferrari, gets a win as the starting quarterback. It was a microcosm of the Utah football season. The offense wasn't great, and the defense was dominant. A forced fumble by Lander Barton early in the game led to a field goal, then 2 pick sixes. I'll tell you what. If that is Zemiah Vaughn's final game, as far as his career goes, he went out with a bang. That was a great game played by him. And Smith Snowden with a pick six. So Utah football, of course, continues their streak of pick sixes, and they get a win over a solid but not great UCF team. And ultimately, for Utah football, it's all about now what this offseason will look like. And it starts with the head coach. It starts with Coach Witt. I have no insight today that you won't hear anywhere else about the future for Kyle Whittingham. I go back to his media availability on the Monday following, which game was that? I think it was the Colorado loss. And it was the Monday after the Colorado loss, prior to the Iowa State game, where Coach Witt's media just struck me as a guy that was resolved and struck me as a guy that's not going out like this. I have no clue. We could hear within the next 5 to 10 minutes that this is it for Kyle. Obviously, any information we hear on our end, we'll bring it to you. But that's got to be number one. And I talked about this with Sean during Crosstalk. My guess is they already know up there, and Kyle has let the people that need to know, and you and I are not on a need-to-know basis, not as of yet, as far as what his future is going to be. Is it Morgan's time yet? Is it Morgan's time now? I don't know. I'm sure they know up there, and over the next 24 hours, maybe even prior to that, I'm sure we'll hear news about that. So step number one, will Kyle come back? After a 20-year, unbelievably successful run, no matter where you're at today on this Monday, after the team goes 5-7, and they finish essentially where BYU was supposed to finish with a 2-7 record in conference play, tied for UCF and Arizona for second to last. Oklahoma State, I still chuckle that the most popular preseason pick in Vegas as far as bettors go for the Big 12 championship game was Utah versus Oklahoma State. They went a combined 2 of 16 in conference. Oklahoma State 0-9, Utah 2-7. So no matter where you're at on this Monday, and I get the frustration, it was a frustrating year. And it wasn't just the lack of wins, it was also the lack of quality. I mean, Arizona, TCU, BYU, Iowa State, all at home. And a couple of, like, the BYU and Iowa State games were entertaining college football games, but Utah comes up on the wrong end of the final score there. But the TCU and Arizona games were just flat boring. Like, it was a bad product. It's not just wins and losses. Are you giving your fan base a product that they can enjoy when they're shelling out all this cash? You're asking people now not just to buy tickets. You're asking people not just to buy food and bev and merch. You're asking people to donate for NIL. And you're asking the community for a lot. In exchange, the community asks for a good product that they can enjoy for a few hours on a Saturday when they're just trying to escape from the daily grind of life. And Utah football, if we're honest, did not deliver that for the most part this year. So step number one, Coach Witt. And again, no matter where you're at on this Monday, this season does not diminish his accomplishments and his greatness as far as the greatest head football coach that we have had for the University of Utah, and probably one of the top 2 or 3 in the history of our state. That's who he is, and that's who he always will be, no matter how it ends. If it ends now, even if it ends next year with a similar season, it still is going to be who Kyle is. And he has earned his right to let us know when he's done, okay? But for the betterment of the program, which, of course, that is Coach Witt's first priority. Even if he's not going to be the head coach, he wants to make sure in his new whatever quasi mentor role he's going to be in with the athletic department, helping Morgan try to get his footing, Kyle wants to make sure he's leaving this place better than where he found it. So step number one, will the head ball coach be back? Step number two, who's calling the plays? And there are a bunch of online rumors. There are a bunch of names that are being thrown out there. I can't corroborate any of them. I honestly have no idea. But I will say you can't wait. These decisions have to, and like I said, my guess is they are made. My guess is the traction is there as far as who the hire is going to be. Mark Harlan, his staff up there, people probably know. The people that need to know probably know whether or not Kyle's coming back. And the people that need to know probably know the direction that they're leaning in as far as who the offensive coordinator is going to be. But you can't wait as far as announcing it with the signing period in the early transfer portal that essentially is here this week. We're hearing all of these announcements already with the transfer portal upon us of players leaving schools. And Utah football needs to be on top of as many of them as they possibly can. Okay, so head coach, offensive coordinator, and I think it's safe to say talent infusion in the quarterback room. I have no idea what that's going to look like. I know there's the Cam Rising stuff still hanging over all of our heads. I'll repeat what I've said before. This honestly feels like one of those really good marriages that just kind of runs out of steam over the course of a few years, where you just hug each other and say, hey, best of luck, but it's probably better for you to go that way. I'm going to go this way. That's just what it feels like to me. But if they hit the transfer portal and it comes up dry, how upset would you be if they announce that Cam is coming back? I mean, we talked to Josh Pate about this when Cam went down about the potential of Cam coming back for that 8th season. And yes, you can roll your eyes. You can say, here we go again. But if Cam is healthy under center and after 5 or 6 weeks, you're 6-0 and he's balling out, my guess is you're going to be just fine with it. But only time will tell, what that looks like as far as the timeline. But right now, I think there's a little bit of urgency to get all these ducks in a row to make sure that this year was an anomaly and an exception as opposed to the rule and the new normal, because that's the fear, right? The fear is this year. And last year, we can lump it in. I still think the fact that Coach Witt was able to get that team to 8 wins with all the injuries they had was remarkable. But, it has been 2 straight years of a ton of injuries. And, by the way, a little bit of a non sequitur. At what point do we ask a question about why this team can't stay healthy? And I'm not aiming my bow anywhere. I'm throwing darts essentially. I don't know who to ask questions about. But the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. This is a 2-year, pretty catastrophic trend. At what point do we ask questions about what the deal is up there? Because ask Kyle Shanahan right now. We watched the Niners and the Bills last night. McCaffrey looks like he's done for the year with a PCL sprain. They're without so many good players. And preseason, Vegas told us there are 2 elite football teams in the NFL this year. One is the Chiefs, one is the Niners. But the Niners have no shot because they're simply not healthy. Okay? It's the same thing now with Utah for 2 straight years. From a sports talk radio perspective, where we're trying to create topics that are incendiary and interesting, I can't crack this mic and say, Cam's hurt, I'll talk to you in 8 months. We have to come up with other things. But the fact of the matter is, both this year and last year would have looked so much different if this team was even like 85% healthy, let alone 100% healthy. And no team's 100% healthy. Every team has injuries. But this has been a 2-year trend now where I think it's fair to ask questions like, what's the deal? And are you going to do anything about it? Right? And what is there to be done, I suppose, is the question. But we look back, and we'll always look back on the season as really what could have been, because the truth of the matter is an average offense, not a good offense, not a great offense, but just an average offense puts Utah right in the mix to win the Big 12. It just does. That's how good the defense was, most every single metric. They did start to force more turnovers down the stretch. The first part of the Big 12 schedule defensively was dominant in most every phase outside of havoc plays and forcing turnovers, but they fixed that down the stretch with some pick sixes and some forced fumbles and such. An average offense puts this team in the mix to win the Big 12. And ultimately, that's the task for this coaching staff and this administration, to make sure your offense is at least average. There's the goal. There's the bar. Utah football on 3, average offense. That's all you need with how dominant this defense was. Now, we'll get to some BYU takeaways coming up in just a little bit. But ultimately, if I told any BYU fan back in August or early September, hey, you're going to win 10 games in conference play, you're going to beat Utah, you're going to go 10-2, you're going to double the amount of wins a year ago, you're going to beat your rival, you would have all taken it. Now, the cruel part of it is, as fans, we get greedy, and winning championships is really hard. So I do think Kalani and his staff are always going to look back on 2024 with that 9-0 start and everything that was in front of them. And it's really, honestly, it's the Kansas game. Like, ASU's good, and that was a tough game on the road. But you put 13 points on the board at home against Kansas, that will go down as one of the most damning losses in BYU football history, because you win that game and you get it done. You go to the Big 12 championship. Arizona State, they're on their way. That's a good team. You lose in their building, at their place, in their stadium. That's understandable. I thought Kalani was really very honest post-game, talking about how they were somewhat living on borrowed time with all of the quote-unquote lucky bounces, you guys call it whatever you want. They were 4-0 in one-score games, and then you can't live like that forever. You can't ride Lady Luck forever. They lose Kansas and Arizona State one-score games. They finished 4-2 in one-score games. But a remarkable season, the third 10-win season for Kalani Sitake. But I understand kind of the sour taste right now because you had everything in front of you after starting 9-0. We'll see what bowl game that BYU is going to play in. We have a couple of projections we'll bring on air coming up in just a little bit, but we're going to bring in Stevenson Sylvester Coming up on the other side, I want to tell you guys about my friends at Lifestyle Men's Health. Go to lifestylemensclinic.com. Give them a call at 385-458-9203. I'm a man in my mid-40s, and for the past year, I have utilized their testosterone therapy and their vitality peptides, and in a year, it has made an incredible difference. I'm down about 7 or 8 pounds, didn't need to lose a lot of weight, but I'm at like my preferred weight. My workouts are so much better. Skin quality, hair quality, like it is biohacking. And it's very affordable. They've got great deals. So if you're curious this time of year, if you're feeling tired or sluggish, definitely check them out at lifestylemensclinic.com. Give them a call at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. Stevenson Sylvester, our first guest on a Monday, off and running. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Utah football, the season has now come to an end. Now we look ahead to what's next. Big off season for the Utes. Our next guest, one of our favorites, joins us on a weekly basis. One of the greatest to ever do it up at the U. Stevenson Sylvester on a Monday afternoon. Sly, happy Monday, man. How we doing?
Spence, how you doing, brother? I'm doing good. Monday is here. It was a good weekend for Utah, man, and happy we got a win. Now on to the next, man. Is a whole off season we have to worry about now, so it's crazy.
Let's start with the most important thing. What does Thanksgiving look like in the world of Stevenson Sylvester?
Unfortunately, I didn't. It's my favorite holiday. Out of all the holidays all year, from 4th of July to New Year's to even Cinco de Mayo, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. And I didn't get to spend it at home. I had to get up at 6 a.m. and fly to Florida, and we were stuck at the hotel. And so didn't get my traditional stuff, but my wife made us have our own little mini Thanksgiving on Saturday, so it was good. But for me, it's all about food. When I'm around the fam, it's games all day. We play LCR. LCR is so competitive, especially when money's involved. I won the last time I was with the fam, and all hell broke loose. But tons of games. Me and my older brother and cousin, we normally break out the old games, the N64s and the Segas and stuff like that, and we try to act like we're 10 and 11 years old again, and try to play 007 and Diddy Kong Racing and stuff like that. So just good times with the fam. And I think everybody Thanksgiving, you got to get a little sweat on. So we normally have basketball or, play some backyard football.
Good stuff. Sorry you had to miss out this year. But before we get to this offseason, which is already here, and rumors about the offensive coordinator, rumors about the transfer portal already flying fast, Sly, let's stay in the space of what just ended. A 5-7 season, a 2-7 season in conference. Nobody saw that coming. But as you look back on the year, what are some of your, bright spots, fun moments? Mekhi Bernard, 1,000 yards. It wasn't all bad, Sly. What are some of the fun memories that you'll always take with you from this season?
Oh, man. The biggest one that sticks out the most is the crazy rivalry game, right? It's just what I wanted it to be, controversial, big recognition across the state, across the nation. Good teams, good football, man. It was great, man. Other things that stood out to me was just the consistency of this defense and how great it is, and kind of, it's just as I remembered, is me trying to pick out plays and figure out what's called. It's like, I know this play. I know what's supposed to go on. So that's always fun. New conference, right? We went to visit new opponents this year. I think Oklahoma State, that was a great environment to be in, and pull out a win with that. I thought that was pretty great. Isaac Wilson played good in that game. Mekhi Bernard, played out of his mind in that game, put somebody on skates, and I remember that highlight like crazy. And then, just the quick start in that Baylor game. It was a beautiful day, hot, sunny, and then the defense was just on it, from strip sack to block field goal to quick touchdowns. I just this team was great. It's just a very unfortunate year, lots of drama stuff, and it really just puts into the forefront of you that you got to play every single week, and you can't expect things to just happen.
We do have some breaking news from Pete Thamel. Ben Arbuckle is going to Oklahoma. That was a name that was linked to the University of Utah, so this is just coming down. It's a 3-year deal. Arbuckle was at Wazoo, and now he's headed over to Oklahoma. He won't be coming here to Salt Lake. And Sly, that leads us to the offseason. So let's just start with Coach Witt. Let's start right at the top. We're going to kind of go down the list. He was asked about his future after the win over UCF. Of course, he was not going to announce his decision right after the game. But this is a big offseason, Sly. And so my guess is the people that need to know what Kyle is doing next year already know, and the media and the fans are not in a need-to-know situation with that information. But what's your gut tell you about what Kyle does?
Man, I come from a place of what I want to have happen and then what reality is, right? Like this entire year was built around what Utah should do versus what they were doing. Um, and so it's difficult, this whole situation. Coach Whittingham, amazing coach, amazing career, 40 plus years at the coaching helm. It's just absolutely insane. But he's been doing it. He does his best, and he's seen it all. And even this new age, it's hard to adjust. But man, I think that um, meeting with him these past few years, it's just gotten more and more frustrating after the game as trying to figure out what the solution is, what to handle. He's such a competitor, even still. I know he had a birthday last week or the week before, and at that age, I think that he still has his player competitiveness. And so when things aren't going right, these losses, he really takes it to heart, man. And so you just know he cares. And for me, what I want to have happen, I want to have him have one more year, but I think that's what he said last year. And then this year happened. And so it's kind of just up to him. But I don't know, man. He may sail off to the sunset, as you said. I think the people that need to know. And so they're putting the pieces in place to make that happen before announcing anything. I don't know. As I said, what I want is for him to have one more year, but that's my selfish takes. Either way, this man needs a statue out in front of the stadium.
Yeah, nothing that happens at the end, even with a year like that, and even if he has another year that's rough, I mean, nothing's going to change what he has done and what he has built. I mean, his place is cemented. I think anybody who's been paying attention understands that. Then we land on the offensive coordinator situation, and we know that Morgan's going to have a big say here, as he should, as the guy that's going to take things over. As I referenced, Ben Arbuckle is high speed ahead to Oklahoma. He will not be coming to Salt Lake. So just curious as to your preference for the timing of the hire. Nobody knows who it's going to be. My guess is it's a wide net, but we have early signing day, and then we have transfer report. Like, this hire needs to be in place, in my opinion, Sly, yesterday. The best time was yesterday. The second best time is quickly. As a player, you know what it's like as far as looking at a school that you may want to attend. When would you like to hear this announcement take place?
I've gone back and forth on this, and I definitely understand your perspective on this, and I agree. As a player, you just want to make sure that you go into a place that, that you can work at, grind. You understand the roster as it's assembled right now. Even if they bring in new guys, my mindset as a player is we are all starting at the same level, and I have enough work ethic to surpass you. As far as if somebody's already in the program, the coaches know them, they're working up, so I can kind of compare myself to them, not any new guy. But with this day and age, I would say, yeah, the offensive coordinator being in place is the most important things, but honestly, it doesn't matter. All these kids are looking for is who can pay me the most anyway. So if I get a system that I'm not totally okay with, I'm all right. I'm still getting paid. So I think all these kids just think about like, okay, I'm getting this dough here. And so whatever offensive coordinator comes in needs to make it happen. It's not literally making the best choices as far as things anymore. It's like, who can pay me the most, and I'm going to make it happen anyway. So I think Utah, for their future, needs to make sure that they make the right decision. Whether you go in young as far as offensive coordinator, right? Go to somebody young that, you can build a future with. But again, just like these players, coaches, they transfer out every year. You could have a successful year or two at OC at Utah, and then where's he going? He's going to go somewhere else. He's going to get a head coaching job somewhere else, which, success, ends up making that happen. But how can Utah not get into this situation where we're dying for an offensive coordinator again? Right. And so I think that's going to take time, and it's nothing that we should rush and make that happen. And of course, the sooner the better. But ultimately for these kids, it's not the same as it used to be, is my understanding of it, making sure the situation is right. All these kids, I think their focal point right now is where's the money at? Is the money situation correct? And it's unfortunate, but I think that's just where we're at in today's day and age.
So I'm going to ask you a question only because you know him better than anybody that I know. And I have asked people this and I've been laughed at, and you may just laugh at me because he probably has evolved to the point where he wouldn't even consider a situation of coming back to Utah to be the offensive coordinator. But should Morgan at least call Brian Johnson and be like, hey, what do you think? I mean, again, maybe that's a step in the wrong direction for a guy that's been in the pros. And once you taste that charter food, you don't necessarily want to go back to college. But do you think even a conversation would be worth it with Brian Johnson?
It's kind of hard for me to speak because I've spoken to Brian.
Oh, nice. Okay, very nice.
Yeah, anything is worth a conversation because you never know. Things change every single day. My feelings about something yesterday could change today, right? I could have sat on it overnight. Another inflection point may have happened to where it changed my mind. A conversation is definitely worth it, right? And I think BJ's a big Utah guy. He supports all Utah athletes that came out as an alumni. He's awesome. So I think you want to have buy-in from whoever comes a part of the program. You want to have somebody who has some kind of ties to this state, not necessarily the program, but this state, right? So they can give it their all, give it their best, and really understand what's going on. And I don't think there's anybody better than BJ at that. And I think that BJ has grown so much in his development as far as career since he was offensive coordinator back in the early 2010s. And just everywhere he's gone, he's got a great track record. And so I think that conversation is valid. But it goes to why would BJ want to do that? Is it the money that's going to be better? Of course, you got to deal with this day and age of NIL and transfer portal stuff. That's a complex thing for these coaches to have to deal with and adjust to. Why would BJ want to do that? NFL's so cutthroat. It's like, look, you ain't putting up, get out. There is no issue for pay for play in the NFL, right? It's like, look, the competition's that's high. If you ain't doing it, you off the team. That's not the same case in college football, right? And so you got to deal with these early 20s attitudes and egos, and you don't have that ability to be like, all right, you're out of here, right? It's not like that anymore. So why would BJ want to do that is kind of the question. But, as I said, things change every single day. I don't think BJ would want to be offensive coordinator. I think BJ's been offensive coordinator at the NFL level, college level. I think his next aspiration might be head coach, and so if it's not that's kind of my mentality with thinking about it. But I think BJ would want to have a head coaching gig.
Well, and also he's got a decent thing going in Washington, right?
Yes.
Assistant head coach. Yes. And, Jaden Daniels is awesome. So he could probably ride that train for a while. I don't know. I'm being selfish.
I mean, look at that. Look at that. Cliff Kingsbury's getting all the praise, right? Cliff Kingsbury's going to get another head coaching job. And who do you think Cliff Kingsbury's going to bring with him?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. BJ would probably be the offensive coordinator of Cliff Kingsbury's new team. Right. And you know what that sounds like? That sounds like BJ is going to be the quarterback coach for Chicago Bears. Yeah. Right. And so now you have Caleb Williams, and you got all these young receivers and you have ability. I just don't see BJ wanting to go back to college.
All right. Back to Utah here. Do you feel like the answer under center is on the roster, or do you feel like this has to be a transfer portal situation because, there's still the Cam thing. And I've said before, and, of course, we want to give you the space to give us your thoughts. This feels like a good marriage. It feels like a marriage that's been good, but maybe, somebody started, going to see a Reiki healer and doing too much yoga. So you give somebody a hug and then you just walk in your separate directions because things got weird a little bit. You know what I mean? So I feel like this relationship may have ran its course. But there's the Cam stuff. There's Brandon Rose. There's Isaac Wilson. We say goodbye to the Ferrari. Do you feel like the answer under center is on the roster, or do you feel like it's out there in the transfer portal?
I never know. Me as an athlete, as a former athlete, sorry, let me make sure I preface that. Everybody's capable. everybody's an athlete, everybody laces their cleats up the same way. So to say that, there's a quarterback out there that's better, that's going to give a better effort, I can't say that, right? Brandon Rose did a great job. He has a great arm, right? I still haven't seen Sam Heward, also transfer portal opens up a week from now. So how many guys are going to jump in, this week? There's a lot of decisions. I mean, I like the guys that we have. As I said, I'm a big fan of Isaac Wilson. I've seen him over the last few years in high school, make some developmental jumps. But, we've talked about it. The quarterback position is the most important position because of how mental you have to have it. And I think Isaac Wilson just got to get in control of his mental and emotional capabilities, out there. And if he does, I think he could be a great quarterback. We've seen him make great throws even here this season. Just consistency, right? Quarterback position is how consistent can you be, throughout the year, throughout each week. And, that just wasn't the case for Isaac Wilson. He couldn't throw out routes, simple flare routes, little backside of backfield, check downs. He was missing check down routes. And I believe that was just his mental was just shocked. And as a 18-year-old guy at D1 with so much on his shoulders, that was just a lot of pressure. And so hopefully this offseason he can get out of it, and make a better name for himself in spring. But this is an ever-evolving now culture in college football where people come in, people come out. You got to over-recruit now, right? Like, the recruiting department has to over recruit each position in case somebody drops out. You never know. And so it's kind of like an airplane, which is like Delta, overbooking flights. Some people are going to get left out. And then how are you going to be compensated for all that? So I just think it's a very hard time. I don't know if we have that answer here, but you know what, whoever it is, Sam Heward, Brandon Rose, Isaac Wilson, whoever it is, I'm ready to roll with it, give them an opportunity to show themselves, but just understand that, you got to put up or shut up. And so no excuses. If you suck, but get better. Simple as that.
All right, Sly, before I set you loose, ultimately there is, I think, this fear permeating throughout the fan base that this might be the new normal for Utah football. I feel like it's in a vacuum, just a moment in time. And I do feel like that Coach Witt and his staff have earned the benefit of the doubt, and we should look forward to next season with confidence. And look, Brigham Young, year one of the Big 12, did not look great. But BYU's walking line after last year was simply how close they were in so many games. Now, nobody gives a rip about that.
Right.
But ultimately, the fact of the matter is, an average offense puts Utah in the mix to win the Big 12. That's all it is. So, like everything else in life, it's how you look at it. You can look at it as a 5-7 season and a total disaster because you were supposed to win the thing. Or you can look at it the way BYU looked at year one in the Big 12, and that is we're really not that far off, a couple of tweaks, and we're right there. What do you feel like next season is going to look like for Utah football?
Man, I just think there's going to be a lot of growth, a lot of understanding of what we have at our disposal, right? I think, everybody needs a humbling experience, right? We had so many things at our disposal. I think the kids needed it. Right. We had Pac-12 championship. We had this, we had that. Even last year with Bryson Barnes, we were in a college game day came to Utah. Right. That means we had success throughout the year. So I think that, all the guys on the roster now have gone through a lot of ups and downs. And so I think this next year is just going to be an explosion, right? I just think that these guys are going to be more confident and hungrier than ever. Yeah, we lose to our rivals in BYU. We have 5 or 4 straight home losses on Rice-Eccles Stadium, which just doesn't happen. And it just everybody knows our potential, our capability as a player. That simple fact of what you said of having just a competent offense, just something simple, just something of an offense. We win those games. Right. And so for the team that knows that they're that close, very similar to BYU last year to their explosion this year, that just means that they're just going to work that much harder. It's kind of like me in 2007 We started 1-3, and we just picked it up and went on an 8-game winning streak. And next thing you know, we started that offseason. It's like, look, we know our capabilities, right? And then we just have an undefeated season next year. So I think it's a realization of where you're at, your capabilities. And I think that there was tons of young guys that got experience this year with the tumultuous year of injuries and stuff. So I just think that these guys are going to head into this offseason with newfound motivation. And that's what you need going into a season. You need to find that motivation. When you're at the top, it's extremely hard to continue to find that motivation every year. But in Utah's case, I just think that we're going to come in more motivated in the spring, and then more motivated in training camp to get things going.
All right, Sly, thanks for the time, man. Have a great week, and we'll hope for better things ahead, okay?
All right, my man. Thank you so much.
All right, the great Stevenson Sylvester, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Always appreciate Sly's time. Kind of talking about the season that was. It wasn't all bad. It feels all bad on a Monday after a year where the team went 5-7. Prior to the season, they were the favorite to win the thing, and it didn't work out. But off season now, a lot to talk about, a lot to get to. Rumors already flying around. We'll talk more about that coming up. We're going to do some Jazz, though, some NBA, though, with Tom Haberstroh. We will take our medicine and give you our final Big 12 power poll today. Spencer Hall stops by for some college football. Andy Larson later on. But Lifestyle Men's Health now on a Monday afternoon. We welcome in Angela Peterson and Ken on a Monday. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, Angela, good to hear from you. No Ken today, so we'll just talk with my friend who, a year ago, we met, and she said, have you ever had your testosterone levels tested? I said I had not. We went through the process, very seamless, very simple, and your feedback to me was your levels are fine for your age. It's not bad, but the line that you use that continues to stick with me is you don't know how bad you're feeling until you start to feel better. A year later, the testosterone treatments along with the vitality peptides have made a massive difference in my day-to-day functionality. Let's start with those two things. How can you help our listeners, Angela?
Oh, well, it's super easy. All you got to do is come in for an appointment and get your lab work evaluated. We can actually send somebody to your home. We try to make it as convenient as possible. And then we can get you on a plan for testosterone replacement, either doing injections or pellets, which I kind of prefer to do. I think they work a little bit better, but everybody has their preference. And then you can get your testosterone levels back to a level that is going to make you feel better. You're going to have better energy. Your libido is going to increase. You're going to get more metabolic support. And you're just going to generally feel better and be happier with life.
As you and I have discussed, unfortunately, in our market for a while, there were some bad actors offering ED treatments that simply didn't work. So we have some listeners that probably got God, and that's unfortunate. Your treatment for ED is different. What makes it different, and what makes it so effective?
Well, it's super effective. And we have clients that are regaining sexual function after not being able to have intercourse for, up to 10 years. They're regaining function. And what we're doing is we're using stem cell therapy to really kind of regenerate erectile tissue for a man so they can have, intercourse with their partner. And it is the only thing on the market that I can say that really works.
And what's the special offer you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
If you give us a call, we will include 6 months of testosterone replacement therapy with the erectile dysfunction treatment. So those two go together. But if you sign up for our erectile dysfunction treatment, which is still offered at a discount, we will include 6 months of TRT, either pelleting or injections, your choice, and we'll get you on your road to success.
Massive savings this holiday season. If you've waited to call, today is certainly the day. Lifestyle Men's Health. It's 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203 or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Angela, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Some NBA coming up next with Tom Haberstroh. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. Get back to some college football with Spencer Hall on the show today. One of my favorites to talk college football with. Going to bring in Andy Larson today from the Salt Lake Tribune to talk a little Jazz. Back on the ground in Salt Lake after a Thanksgiving weekend in Fairfield County. Our next guest, a proud Fairfield County boy, Tom Haberster on a Monday. Tom, happy Monday. How are you?
How was the 203?
You know the deal. It's intense. Brought back a lot of PTSD when you're a rose risen from concrete and you're raised in such a dangerous part of the country. Tom, it just, you do what you can to get by.
Yeah, it's all we can really do. The hard scrabble of wasn't there a WWE group, the Mean Streets of Greenwich or something like that?
Yes, indeed. Good memory. You didn't get home to the motherland for the holiday, did you?
I didn't know. So unfortunately I didn't make it back, but I'm glad you did. So you could represent the NBA and all the smart basketball folks quite well back home.
Yes, indeed. It was fun. Always good to take some time off to sharpen the sword, as they say, but now back on the ground. There is a report, Tom. There's not a lot of interesting Jazz stuff, but there's a report already that trade discussions are being had involving Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, John Collins as well. I still don't believe anybody wants to pay John Collins $26 million. But are you expecting, and look, this is different than years past because they might be in a perfect spot. They're horrible. They do not need to break it down like they have over the past couple of years when they've kind of surprised some people. But are you expecting potentially an active Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck with his Jazz roster prior to the trade deadline?
I suspect so. I mean, the fact that they're still on the roster is surprising to me, given that, over the past year or two or three when I've been on this show, it seems like the direction of the franchise from the top on down, it seems like they're going for a rebuild or that they should be in position for a rebuild, and those players don't exactly fit that timeline very well. Now, keep in mind, John Collins is not like an old veteran. He's still 27. He's in his prime. And so for anyone acquiring him, it's not just that, this is a guy over the hill. He's not Jordan Clarkson's age. Clarkson is almost, turning 33 this summer. So they're at a little bit different points in their career. Colin Sexton and John Collins, I think, would be more appealing to a contender. But certainly Jordan Clarkson has been in that kind of playoff atmosphere with LeBron and trying to do that at a high level. So I suspect that there will be interest come the deadline, maybe not right now. But, I even think that team in LA that they just lost to in horrible fashion, just a horrible circumstance there at the end. I do think that those are the types of teams that will come knocking, because when you have a superstar like Kevin Durant or LeBron James or Stephen Curry, the clock is ticking, and they will need veteran bodies that they can trust down the stretch. And a lot of those teams have young players in the rotation that maybe they could get some veterans like Colin Sexton, John Collins, who have been around the block a few times.
So Cody Williams, who was the highest pick the Jazz made in the draft a year ago, it hasn't looked good at all. I mean, he's still so young. He has to gain weight. He just gets pushed off the ball both sides of the floor, and he's going to spend some time in the G League. So for me, I'll just say, Tom, I have no issue with any of this at all, but there are two sides to the equation. Like if you're going to have a top 10 pick on your roster, you want some signs that show that you made the right pick, and there haven't been those signs. But on the other side of it, the G League is there for this very thing. Gobert spent a ton of time in the G League his rookie year. So the dynamic of having a top 10 pick that just hasn't looked good at all, spending time in the G League, what's the Tom Haberster? What would you say to the fan base about that dynamic that they're dealing with here in Salt Lake?
Yeah, it's not fun to have to deal with this and the growing pains of a 20-year-old trying to play in a man's league. And, I cover on a nightly basis the Portland Trailblazers doing their broadcast as their analytics insider. And one thing that I've had to remind myself is that Scoot Henderson is 20 years old. It is really hard to remind yourself that when you're watching this league. It's not like these guys have a number on their back that says how old they are, but we do have to remember that his first year, it was rough for Kevin Durant. His first year was rough for Russell Westbrook. Chris Middleton wasn't even in the NBA as a 20-year-old. He was trying to make it in the G League and trying to come up through there, and he was a nobody. You look at Grady Dick over in Toronto, who's looked excellent this year, who looked one of the worst NBA players last year, statistically and just with the eye test. He was pretty bad last year. And what he's done this year has been a totally different player. And, you look at the numbers, Cody Williams is not, performing at a high level. But remember, his older brother was a bit of a project too, wasn't necessarily putting up these kind of numbers. Similarly at Colorado, it wasn't like Cody Williams was, all Pac-12 or whatever at that level. So he was all freshman team, but it wasn't necessarily he was a no doubt number 10 pick. So it was a bit of a project to begin with. And this is what it looks like when you're a 20-year-old. Not everybody's LeBron. And not everybody is Victor Wembanyama. And so, unfortunately, when you do have Cody Williams, you're going to have to press the pause button on your expectations and wait until he's about 22, 23 before you can make some real evaluations on whether he's going to be worth the prospect investment at that point.
When last we spoke, Tom, the Jazz had actually, even though they weren't winning games, the offense really took a big jump and improved quite a bit over about a 10-game sample size. Again, they weren't winning, but they started making shots. Markkanen came back. Well, since you and I last spoke, the offense has come really crashing back down over the past 3 games. 103 against Denver, 106 against the Mavs, 105 last night against the Lakers. What do you attribute? And maybe it's just youth, maybe it's just inconsistency. Maybe, Tom, they're just supposed to be really, really bad. But what have they stopped doing, according to the analytics or the numbers, that they were doing so well when their offense actually looked pretty decent?
Well, I think the NBA, it is unfortunately a make or miss league, and that goes for the downtown. When that's an offense that if they're shooting well from downtown, they're going to look a whole lot better. And when against Dallas, they're shooting 23% from downtown, that's going to be a problem. And so when the offense is just, they can't buy a bucket, it's tough. It's tough sledding. And when you're playing the Lakers, right, even when you shoot well from beyond the arc and from the floor, you still have to stop turning the ball over, and you still have to get stops in order to win those games. And they just didn't get enough of both. Like the idea that the Jazz, with their injuries and in and out of the lineup, are going to be consistent from night to night, it's really tough. But when their best player, Lauri Markkanen, has had a couple scuffles there in terms of his shooting, you're not going to get great performances offensively because there's so much that is dependent on him. And he didn't shoot well against San Antonio and certainly not against Dallas. And that when you're the head of the snake is not shooting well, it's a lot harder for the rest of the guys to play off of them. And so, look, it really is. I did this story for Yahoo Sports about the lack of dunks in the NBA and whether that's attributable to the 3-point, obsession these days. And it's still true that this year, Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton have not had a single dunk in any game this season. Last year, Colin Sexton had 23 dunks and Jordan Clarkson had 13. So they've had 36 dunks last year, and we're a quarter of the way through the season, and they have 0. Why is that? Well, the best way to get dunks on the other end is to get stops defensively, get out in transition, get out in fast breaks, have the ability to have numbers in transition. And so how much of this is on the offense or some sort of X's and O's that aren't being run, or whether it's, guys in and out of the lineup, and how much of it is just defensively? We like to think that offense and defense are in silos, but the fact of the matter is the defense, Utah's defense, is really, really tough this year. Right now, they're bottom 3 defensively at 118 points allowed every 100 possessions. And so much of the offense in the NBA is about getting out in transition, getting stops, and they just haven't been able to do that. And so I think part of the reason why you aren't seeing those dunks and part of the reason why you haven't seen those easy buckets on the offensive end is because a lot of times they're making it hard for themselves to get out in transition without getting stops.
All right, last thing about the Jazz, then we'll move on because, Tom, and I try not to be super redundant in our interviews, but I do believe they like Keontae a lot, and I do believe, whenever, like, I did this Knicks podcast prior to the Jazz-Knicks game a couple of weeks ago, and their lead question was who's going to be around when they're actually good. And honestly, the answer is Markkanen, and I don't know. But I do think there's room for Keontae because in spurts he does show some things, but he still is not making shots. And over the past 5 games, 5 turnovers, 6 turnovers, 2 turnovers, 5 turnovers, 6 turnovers. So he's not making shots. He makes horrible decisions with the ball. He doesn't guard point of attack. I don't know what to make of who he is now and what he can be. Is this a result of playing with a bunch of other, young players, a franchise that's unserious about winning this year, or is it time to really wonder whether or not the Jazz are long for Keontae George?
I think it's really tough, the NBA's incentive structure. It's tough for coaches, it's tough for front offices, and it's tough for guys like Keontae George to learn the right way to play basketball because losing is incentivized. The NBA sets up a situation in which the teams that are the worst get the best chances at the star players in the draft. Of course, it's really hard to pick which one is the star and which one turns out to be, a pumpkin. But the idea of, hey, man, this guy's 21 years old. He's not really figuring things out. Maybe you just throw him into the Wolves and say, hey, figure it out on the fly. And that experience will give you enough repetitions to learn how to play at the NBA level. Because the fact of the matter is, if the Utah Jazz had Chris Paul on the team or Mike Conley on the team or someone who is a really capable point guard, I mean, even just take like Tyus Jones in Phoenix. Keontae George isn't playing 30, 35 minutes a night. He's not. And so a lot of this is just he is playing out of position, or at least he is playing a lot more minutes than he would otherwise if the NBA was set up in a structure where you have to bide your time and you go to the G League and you go and you get those reps, and it doesn't have to be at the NBA level. But the problem is, some of the incentives in this league are so perverse where, like, you don't even know if this is part of the plan. Is like, because of the ping pong balls, do you let a guy like Keontae George play through these struggles and turn over the ball 4 or 5 times a game? And you know what? That's okay, because, in the last thing you want to be is in the middle. And he helps you get into the bottom of that in the name of player development. And it just stinks. I don't like the way that the NBA is set up like that. I personally think that the way that the draft lottery works, it creates a lot of intentional mediocrity. And for Keontae George, I don't even know right now if I've changed my opinion of him, because so much of the NBA right now is just making sure that you're on one path or the other. And so for me, it's like, I do think that the right path for the Jazz is to get another bite at the apple at the top of the draft next year. But it makes things really difficult to evaluate a guy like Keontae George, who still can hit a shot. And it's not really the 3-point shooting that bothers me. It's the ability to finish in the paint. His 2-point percentage has fallen from 46% last season to 42% this year. And that's really the problem, is a guy that, yes, he's young, but he still hasn't been able to be a efficient scorer into the paint or a decision maker into the paint. And that's, he's a bigger guard at 6'4", but it doesn't feel like he's figured out the floater game or finishing around the rim enough to be, show some promise where you can build around him confidently. So I've probably moved off Keontae George as a foundation member or a pillar for this organization until he can develop further. And I have to remind you, And I know you know this. He's 21, and it's really hard, but you hope that there's some glimmers of that potential coming soon.
Yeah, well said. I mean, the issue, Tom, and we'll move off the Jazz because there's a lot of other things I want to talk to you about today. The issue is even, I always use Donovan as an example. That team wasn't supposed to be great. It was the post-Hayward, okay, let's see what we have here. And even though they weren't winning, there was, at a really high level, Quinn did a hell of a job that year. There were so many Donovan moments where you're just like, this feels real. And I don't know that we've seen enough Keontae moments that feel real and sustainable. But to your point, it could change when he has better playmates in the sandbox, so we'll have to see. But I want to move over to the Rockets. I mean, Ime Udoka, after everything got loose in Boston, you knew that he was going to land on his feet because he's so highly thought of. And I don't know how real it is, but at this point, they have to be talked about as a team that is a very pleasant early season surprise after beating OKC, and they sit second in the West, only half a game behind the Thunder. I don't know how many people saw this coming. What's your take on the Rockets so far?
Subscribers to the Finder would tell you I saw it coming. Spence, I had preseason, I thought that they were a title contender. I thought that this team with Alperen Şengün, who I thought was the best player coming out in that class, I thought he should have been the number one pick. The way that he dominated the Adriatic League on the Turkish team, where he's 18 years old and dominating grown men in that league, you gotta take him at least in the top 5, and he fell all the way to 16. I thought OKC for sure would have picked him, and they didn't. And they moved off the pick. The Houston Rockets are monsters defensively. Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Dylan Brooks, these guys are vicious on the perimeter. And so when you have a guy like Alperen Şengün, who isn't a classic rim protector, you surround him with Fred VanVleet and then just dogs, Dobermans defensively, that are going to be vicious. And I thought, this is a team that's going on my title tiers right away. They're young. They're still young. These guys are 20, 21, 22 years old. But I'm a huge believer in Alperen Şengün. I also think at the second level of this, one reason why I was a believer and put them on my title tiers before the season even started is because of their ability to upgrade and swing for the fences in a trade. So this team has picks, the Phoenix picks that they traded for. They're basically shorting the Phoenix Suns. Ironically, they want to get Kevin Durant or a type of player like Kevin Durant. And I think they have the ammo to do that. It's just whether the contenders are going to play ball. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, Kevin Durant, they are ready to go pouncing on a talent like that. The question is whether they do it. And for me, the Houston Rockets with Fred VanVleet, Alperen Şengün, I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Green, but those defenders are so fun to watch. The Terror Twins, Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, they're perfect. And they're great fits next to Alperen Şengün and Fred VanVleet. I love the way that they play. I still think they need another star to make the leap, but that might happen this offseason when Jalen Green's contract becomes a little bit more palatable and the poison pill provision is pulled away. I think the Houston Rockets are going to go big game hunting this summer, and it may even be at the deadline. If the Western Conference is there for the taking, and I think it is, I think the Western Conference at the top, the Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota Timberwolves, Denver Nuggets, they haven't gotten off to a great start this year, and the Houston Rockets, they can absolutely win the West and come out of the West if they do upgrade, and I think they got the assets to do it too.
Want to get your thoughts on the San Antonio Spurs now, who didn't have a 3-game winning streak until March of last year. Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, obviously veterans that have won at a very high level in this league. And, they've won 4 straight. I believe they're 7-3 in their last 10. Wembanyama gets another triple-double. And this is a franchise that I think is going to be fascinating to watch as far as how they handle this next generation special player. Progress report from Tom Haberstroh on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs.
I love it. Chris Paul coming to this team, Stephen Castle. I love that rookie from UConn. Donovan Clingan and Stephen Castle have been outstanding so far this season. Really nice draft. Victor Wembanyama is the real deal. Again, I'm going to plug it, TomTheFinder.com. I put the San Antonio Spurs as a title contender before the season, one of my 15 teams to watch. And I feel vindicated on that front because they've made strides this season, not just offensively, but I think with Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul, there's an organization and a professionalism to their offense that they didn't have last year. And I think the Sohan, Jeremy Sohan point guard experiment, I think was a real problem last year and really set them back in their development. And as soon as they handed the keys to Wemby at center, and unleashed him, and now he's shooting, 9 threes a game at 35%, but much higher as of late, where he's shooting, 14, 13 threes in a game. He just looks like, he's just scratching the surface, which is super scary because he's already leading the league in block shots. He's already getting, in these triple-double categories, doing things that we would expect, someone at 25 years old. He's 21. Chris Paul is who he is at this point. We know that he's a guy who's going to be an organizer offensively. He's as smart of a point guard as anybody. And you pair him with the IQ, the basketball IQ, Victor Wembanyama, it's going to be really, really good. I just wish they had, another guy there, Devin Vassell. He's trying to make his way back after having a really nice start to his career, getting that extension with the team. I love the San Antonio Spurs. And I think if Damian Lillard, if Trae Young, if Kevin Durant, if these types of names become available at some point, I would absolutely try to make a move if you're Greg Popovich and that organization trying to figure out a way to maximize Victor Wembanyama. I think he's surrounding himself with veterans. I think they'll be pleasantly surprised to learn that he's ready to go now. He's ready to win right now. And I would love to see them upgrade as well. Question is, same thing with Houston, same thing with Utah, same thing with San Antonio. Like, who is that star? Who is that disgruntled star that will become available at the trade deadline? I don't know who that is right now. Maybe it's in Minnesota. I don't know who it's going to be. But at this point, those two teams, Houston and San Antonio, if they really want to make a big jump, they can. I've been believers from day one with these teams, and I think they're going about it the right way.
All right, before I set you loose, you just referenced the T-Wolves, and this year the returns from the Gobert and Mitchell deals start coming the Jazz way. My guess is the Cavs pick isn't going to be great. We don't have time to talk about them right now, but Minnesota, as of now, 9-10. They're 3-8 in their last 11. And, we're getting greedy around here. Maybe we have a couple of lottery picks, not just the Jazz pick, but the T-Wolves pick. Obviously, there's so much time ahead, but we are at the 20-game mark, the Thanksgiving mark, where front offices do look and kind of dive in to see what they have, what sort of hand they've been dealt. How concerned do you think Timberwolves fans should be about their team? And is there a chance the Jazz could have Lady Luck shine upon them and this could really be a lottery situation?
I think it's certainly possible. I wasn't a huge fan from the Minnesota standpoint. The trade for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, I wrote about it on my Substack, TomTheFinder.com, this morning about the returns on that trade have been abysmal for the Minnesota Timberwolves. You look at what Anthony Edwards is saying publicly. We just taped Basketball Illuminati that will be coming out on Wednesday, breaking down the very cryptic, but not so cryptic, post-game press conference from last week after they lost to the Sacramento Kings. Anthony Edwards just all but calling out Julius Randle, a guy who has one block this season. Julius Randle, who has played in every game this season as the starting power forward for a team that is thought to be contending, has one block this year. When you talk about Anthony Edwards, he says we're soft, we're a bunch of babies who don't talk. Like, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to look too far to see who he's referring to. And Julius Randle is the least efficient ISO player in the NBA this season. He has one block to his name, which is one of the lowest rates in NBA history for a big man. This is a team that had a defensive identity, as Ant said, and now they've lost it. And a big reason why is because they traded for Julius Randle. This guy's he's in a contract year, and you're wondering why not everyone's on the same page. Anthony Edwards says, hey, there's guys with certain agendas on this team. They don't figure out things quickly. There might be some changes here, and they've got Naz Reid, who I think is the better player than Julius Randle. Not a fan of Julius. You can probably tell by this segment. But I think Minnesota, they've got some problems here because we just saw Anthony Edwards over in Paris. He was around championship caliber players. He knows how to do it. He knows what kind of, work ethic, what kind of players you need to do that. And is really Julius Randle that guy? I don't think so. And so we'll see. But right now they're 9-10, and their defense is not elite right now. And I suspect that there's going to be more smoke there's going to be more fire where that smoke that you're seeing the last couple of weeks. Anthony Edwards is not going to be quiet about this situation. We know that.
All right, Tom, where can people go find all of your work? You are a busy, busy boy.
The Blazers broadcast, we do every single night, the Blazers broadcast with Kevin Calabro, Lamar Hurd, Brooke Oltendam. Go check us out on League Pass. Also, TomTheFinder.com is my Substack, and I do Basketball Illuminati every week wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as writing at Yahoo Sports, The Kevin O'Connor Show. You can catch me twice every week over at Yahoo Sports Podcast with my show, The Big Number, which comes out every Thursday. So did I miss anything there? Oh, every week on Mondays at around this time, you can catch me on your show, Spence.
Yes, sir. The most important one there at the end, Tom. Thanks for your time, man. Have a great week. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thanks, bud. You too.
All right, the great Tom Haberstroh. We're going to bring in Spencer Hall coming up at about 4 o'clock, one of my favorite guests to talk college football with. Andy Larson is going to join us in the 4 o'clock hour as well, so stay tuned for that. But let's welcome in my friend Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health on a Monday. Dr. Peterson, happy Monday.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for the time. All right. ED treatments, okay, erectile dysfunction, as you and I have discussed over the course of our year of knowing each other. It causes havoc in your life. It can cost relationships. And the good news is you have a treatment that can fix it, has fixed it for a lot of people. You get great feedback. Let's start there. What makes your ED treatments different?
Well, it's different and it works. And we have done a lot of research and development to find a treatment that's actually going to fix erectile dysfunction because it's a huge problem for men. And guys out there, we can help you. You don't have to suffer. We can make this better. Yes, a lot of the treatments that have been available in the past did not work, and I know it was very disappointing. But using stem cell therapy and other therapies that we can recommend, we can really reverse things for men that are struggling with ED because the stats are staggering. It's 50% of men over the age of 40. So I know you're out there, and there is help, and we can fix it.
All right. So for me, over the past year, you've helped me out with both testosterone replacement therapy and vitality peptides. As a man in my mid-40s, gratefully, I don't need any help with the ED stuff. But the other stuff that you've helped me with has really changed my quality of life day to day, no doubt. Better sleep, brain fog gone. I actually wake up excited to work out. And if you're in your mid-40s, you know that is tough. You have to wake up, and when it's cold during the winter seasons, you have to summon all you have just to get to the gym. But it's really, really made a difference in my life. Biohacking, as you call it. Let's hear about those two things, Angela.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, testosterone in men these days is very, very low. I have very few clients that have a naturally high testosterone level. So there's definitely something going on in our environment and our lifestyle, but we can fix it and we can make you feel better. Having low testosterone is going to make you feel tired. You're not going to have a libido. You're going to be irritated. You're going to gain weight. But all those things can be reversed, and it's super simple. You just need to get on a replacement therapy plan, and I can help you do that.
And what is that special offer you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
So for your listeners, that call us today and book an appointment for erectile dysfunction treatment and proceed with that treatment, we will include 6 months of free testosterone replacement therapy with the ED treatment.
Angela, there are listeners. Come on, you're a big part of the show. There are listeners. All right, today is the day. It's a special offer. Celebrate the holidays. Or maybe if you are a partner of a man who is going through these things, you could maybe buy it as a stocking stuffer, as a Christmas gift. Call this number today. It's 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203 or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Angela, thank you.
Thank you so much.
We are going to take our medicine. Coming up next, we're going to give you the final edition of the Big 12 Power Poll here on The Drive. Then we're going to move over to Spencer Hall and Andy Larson in the 4 o'clock hour. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. To start the season, this segment was one I was very excited about. All year long, following this crazy conference, and yes, it has been a crazy, crazy conference, I thought, it would be fun to try to analyze exactly who's good, who's not. Is Baylor the best team in the conference now? I don't know. Everybody who covers college football was correct about the Big 12, that it was going to be chaotic. Utah's first year in the Big 12 did not go the way that we thought it would. Feels a little bit like BYU last year, year one of the Big 12 for BYU. The conversation surrounding the season for the Cougars last year was how close they were in so many games. And I kind of roll my eyes at that because nobody gives a rip. But a couple steps forward for Brigham Young this year. They find themselves as a 10-2 football team. And we'll see what the bowl game experience is going to look and sound like for them. ESPN FPI is kind of interesting because it does not jive with the final rankings as the Big 12 regular season is now behind us. Iowa State, Arizona State, we were kind of hoping that one of those two teams would lose to crack the door for Kalani and BYU, but they both handled their business as Arizona State rolled over their rival Arizona. And Iowa State survived a decent test against K-State, but they stayed clean, and now they're going to the Big 12 championship game. But, Porter, I have to say, trying to ascertain week in and week out who is good and who is not in this conference has been rather challenging. It feels like it's just a bunch of teams that are all like, It's been a challenging year for Big 12 football for sure.
Yeah, outside of probably the bottom team, Oklahoma State didn't win a Big 12 game. So they're the worst team in the conference. Now the schedule makers have something to do with that as well. But yeah, the middle of the conference to be really certain was just a cluster of teams that are hovering right around that 500 mark. Right, there's a bunch of teams that are 5-7, 6-6. Even some of the 8-4 teams are maybe not that far from the 5-7 teams, but their schedule leaned their way. Like TCU, right? TCU, I think, finished 8-4, but they also missed out on the top 4 teams in the Big 12. So, yeah, there's just a big mix-up in the middle, and part of that is that there is no lead dog. There's no flag carrier for the Big 12, and that's going to be a topic point going forward, especially tomorrow night with the college football playoff rankings. But as far as doing a power ranking week in, week out, it wasn't very easy on the Big 12 side this year.
Offseason has begun for the Utes. There are a lot of rumors right now as far as the offensive coordinator situation and players hitting the transfer portal. As soon as some of these things become real, we'll bring them to you. A lot of rumors surrounding Utah State. Who's their next head coach? Could it be Jay Hill? Could it be Bronco Mendenhall to get Bronco back in the state? So, of course, the season's behind us for Utah, but there's a lot of very interesting things topically to kind of dig into. So, Porter, I ranked 12 teams today because that's how much space I needed to get the Utah Utes in. How many teams did you rank on your power rankings?
Well, let's see. I think I have the Utes at 11 or 12, so
okay.
I'm about there. But I did rank all the teams just since it's our last one.
I love it. So I will give you the floor. Big 12 power rankings, the Porter Larson edition for the final time.
The worst team in the conference was Oklahoma State. They, even though they were picked as the number 2 team coming in, only to lose to Utah, they weren't that. And it was as surprising, I think, to me, actually more surprising to me than the Utah one, because there weren't as many injuries to kind of point at. There wasn't necessarily that scapegoat that Utah kind of had with the injury bug over the last couple of years. So Oklahoma State comes in at 16. Arizona comes in at 15. They were really, really disappointing all year as well. Houston comes in, the next team, UCF, and then Utah. Of course, Utah gets over UCF by way of that win. Cincinnati, Kansas, West Virginia, and then we get into the top half of the conference, which are teams that did finish plus 500. We go TCU. We go Tech. Tech finished strong in a lot of ways. Obviously not to finish out the year, but overall, you look at the last 2 months of football that they played, and they put themselves in a position to be in the Big 12 title game, at least up until the final week of the season. Baylor did the same, and for that reason, they sneak in to my top 6. And then our top 5, Spencer, Kansas State, they come in at number 5. Colorado coming in at number 4. BYU at 3. Of course, all of those teams had an opportunity to play in the Big 12 title game on the final day of Big 12 football. Things did not go their way. And for the top 2 teams in the Big 12 in 2024, both of them getting to 10-win seasons and, of course, playing in a Big 12 championship game. Arizona State at number 2. And as of right now, I have Iowa State at number 1, simply because I think they're going to win that football game, and I think they're going to be a playoff team. It's not what I thought a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. In fact, if we go back a month ago into the season, I had Iowa State as the number 1 team. You'll remember this, but I put the caveat on that, Spence, that I didn't think they would be the number 1 team come the final power ranking, and I was wrong about that. They stayed at the top of my power rankings for the final month of the year.
We have to give Josh Pate his flowers. Josh Pate picked Iowa State to start the year in the Big 12. He was like the only one I heard pick Iowa State to win outright. So our guy called it. Somebody out there called it. All right, I have 12 teams ranked today for the final edition of the Big 12 Power Rankings here on the show. By the way, both Mark Schleybaugh and good friend of the program, Kyle Bonagura, have BYU playing Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. So that would be fun. Little Deion Sanders action. So those are the 2 bowl projections from ESPN on the .com side of things. BYU, Colorado, Alamo Dome, San Antonio. That would be played, by the way, I believe Saturday, December the 28th. Who wants to spend post-Christmas and New Year's in San Antonio? Enjoy that. All right, so I agree with Porter on a number of different levels. We do have some differences. I have Utah coming in at number 12. The FPI on the ESPN side of things has Utah as the number 11 team in the conference, but I have Utah coming in at 12. 11, Cincinnati. Number 10, Kansas. There's so many teams that for a couple of weeks you're like, they might be awesome. And then you're like, wait, they might just be horrible. Kansas screwed everything up, man. As we talked about earlier, when BYU fans look back on this season, they're going to look at that Kansas game. It's not going to be the ASU loss. It's going to be the Kansas game. You hung 13 at home against a team that defensively wasn't great all year long. I have Kansas at 10. As Porter referenced, West Virginia finished pretty strong. I have them at 9, TCU at 8, Texas Tech at 7, Baylor at 6. Baylor right now might be the best team in the conference. Dave Aranda may have saved his job with that late season surge Baylor had. K-State comes in at 5. I actually have BYU at 4 and Colorado at 3. That's one area I disagree with Porter. I think Colorado right now a better football team, although I'd love to see those 2 teams play in the Alamo Bowl. And then I thought you were going to have ASU at 1, but I have ASU at 2, Iowa State at 1, and right now ASU is actually the favorite to win the Big 12 championship game coming up Saturday at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. ASU -2. That over-under is 50.5 for the Big 12 championship game. The college football weekend will begin on Friday with what should be a really good game up in Boise. UNLV Boise State for the Mountain West Conference Championship. The American Athletic Championship is Tulane against Army. And then on Saturday, the Big 12 will start things off at 10 a.m. Then it's time for the SEC title game, which is Georgia and Texas. Texas is a 2.5-point favorite to win that game. Big Ten Championship, Penn State, Oregon. Ohio State, of course, tripping against their rival. Oregon, a 3.5-point favorite to win that game. And then the final game, Bank of America Stadium on Saturday is 6 o'clock. It's Clemson, SMU. Clemson is an underdog in that game. SMU, a 2.5-point favorite. So college football not over yet, but it is over for the University of Utah. No news today as far as the offensive coordinator search. A lot of people still waiting for the news, but it's going to start with Coach Witt. When are we going to hear what Kyle is going to do? So Ben Arbuckle is a name that a lot of people were kind of honed in on as a potential offensive coordinator candidate for the University of Utah. Did a great job up at Wazoo, up on the Palouse this year, and he is high speed ahead to Oklahoma. 3-year deal, according to Ross Dellinger, another friend of the show, for Arbuckle to head to Oklahoma. So Utah is going to have to turn their attention elsewhere. Transfer portal news flying all around. Looks like Jackson Bowers, who is a tight end for BYU, is going to transfer. That's the main name locally as far as what we're hearing today. But, of course, if anything comes down, we will bring it to you on the program. All right, coming up on the other side, we're going to catch up with Spencer Hall. Spencer is one of my favorites to talk college football with. Andy Larson joins us from the Salt Lake Tribune to talk a little Utah Jazz. Monday Night Football tonight. You can hear it on our station after the Craig Smith Coaches Show. So we'll say goodnight at 6 o'clock, about a little more than 2 hours from right now. And it's time for the Craig Smith Coaches Show at 6. And then it's Monday Night Football between the Browns and the Broncos to kind of bring your Thanksgiving weekend to a close. So stay tuned for that. Let's welcome in Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health on a Monday afternoon. Angela, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Big news day for sports.
Yeah, big news day for sports. Obviously, college football kind of dominating the cycle right now, but it's the holiday season. And so potentially a gift idea for people out there that maybe know somebody, maybe your partner is struggling with erectile dysfunction. So it is the holiday season, and you have a treatment for ED that's saved relationships, because that's what this stuff does. It causes chaos. Let's hear about your treatment and why it's so effective.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we are using a regenerative treatment that includes stem cell therapy. And why that's important is because when you have erectile dysfunction, something's not right. Your cells are not working correctly. And stem cells are going to help to repair and make erectile issues go away. It's really amazing. We have clients in their 60s and 70s that haven't been able to have intercourse with their partner in over 10 years, and we've helped them regain functions. They're very, very happy. Obviously, if you have health issues, it's a harder battle, but we can help you with that, and we're going to get you on your way.
And part of becoming a little healthier certainly is what you like to refer to as biohacking, and it's made a massive difference in my life. I went back home for Thanksgiving and saw some high school friends. And I'm not bragging, I'm just aging a little bit better than they are. All right. And they're asking me what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And over the past year, it's been testosterone therapy and also vitality peptides. And it's really been a massive game changer for me. Let's hear about those two dynamics and elements of what you do at Lifestyle Men's Health.
I love hearing that, Spence, because that's exactly what testosterone replacement can do. It can make you feel younger. It can make you act younger. It can really reverse signs of aging, because a lot of men these days just have a low testosterone level, and it's something to do with our lifestyle and our environment. But we can help you get back on track. We can help you feel better. You're going to have better energy, a better libido. You're going to get more metabolic support, and you're just going to get back to feeling more like you.
All right, Angela, what's the special offer you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
We will include 6 months of testosterone replacement therapy, either injections or pellets, depending on your preference, if you are qualified and sign up for our signature ED treatment.
All right. It's a great deal. You're going to save a lot of money, and you're going to feel better pretty much instantly. Take it from me. I've done it for a year now, and it's been a big game changer. Pick up the phone and dial 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203 or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Angela, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Spencer Hall is our guest coming up next right here on ESPN 700.
When I told them it's not known Spencer Hall was a Kansas from my fan, and here we are in Mondo. Spencer, happy Mondo. How are you?
All right.
Long time, first time.
Okay. I love it. What? All right. I got to know right out of the gates. What does Thanksgiving look like in the world of Spencer Hall?
Well, we do a turkey because we're traditionalists, but there was also a bunch of stuff. We had a couple of Cajuns this year, so we had some etouffee, had some oysters because we got some people from New England who had to bring some fresh oysters. That was deeply appreciated. So it's more diverse than it usually was, just due to whoever was coming.
Well, that sounds lovely. Sounds like an excellent holiday. It's such a great holiday, so hopefully you had a good time. All right, before we get to, ultimately what comes next, let's talk about what's now behind us. And, we're here in Salt Lake, in University of Utah football, certainly not the season any of us were expecting. And now we kind of wait, Spencer, but 5-7, 2-7 overall in conference. Just your big picture, macro thoughts now that Utah football is done for the year.
It seems like Utah actually finally, reaped the whirlwind of so many things that had not affected them, despite being factors in previous seasons that, okay, we don't have a quarterback. We usually kind of make that work. Didn't work this year. You didn't have as many people filling the holes that typically have opened up, but did not affect Utah just because of the kind of continuity and depth that y'all have had. So, and I think that's inevitable. That's just going to happen. Is this something that's fixable under the current regime? Yeah, I think so. But in addition to that, you have to consider y'all play now in the wildest conference, by my books, of any in the nation, the Big 12, where the preseason, if we had flipped everything, if we had flipped the preseason 1, 2, 3, that's who ended up at the bottom of the conference. So it's bad. Does it look as bad in context if you consider other teams like, say, Oklahoma State that went completely over on the year? No, it helps. It helps to have neighbors whose yards look worse than yours, right?
It sure does, and I continue to chuckle that from what I read, the most popular preseason pick in Vegas for the Big 12 championship game was Utah, Oklahoma State, and they go combined 2-16 in conference. And I always say college football is the most unpredictable sport, Spencer, but I'm not sure anybody could have predicted this.
I don't know. This is one where somebody would come up to you and go, well, you said this preseason, and you go, yeah, I did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone did.
Yep.
And we all missed. Like, there are a couple of, I think the Big 12 will contain the most mea culpas of anybody who is who's fond of making very definitive preseason judgments and predictions, because no conference to me produced more surprises of the pleasant and, unfortunately for Utah, unpleasant variety.
Yeah, well said. What do you think went, outside of Ollie Gordon just disappearing, what do you attribute most, this shocking downfall for Mike Gundy and OK State?
They've had steady quarterback production in the past. That hasn't happened. When Ollie Gordon really sort of disappeared and their offense collapsed, or the run game collapsed, then any hope of production at the quarterback spot went with it. That makes everything harder on your defense. You have to look at offensive line. If you go, hey, what went wrong with your team this year? It's almost always offensive line, because the offensive line is the one position on the team that makes everyone better. I can defend that. It makes everyone better. It can make everyone except your punter look better on paper. And even then, it makes a punter's job easier because it moves them closer to the 1 yard line they want to park a punt on, right? So add up all that, it's a perfect storm. There are legitimate questions as to whether Mike Gundy really sort of either is capable or wants to adapt to the NIL era. That's something that Oklahoma State's obviously been pretty forward thinking about in a lot of ways, but whether he's the guy to work in that era, I don't know. And they're not even, by the way, you talk about chatter, not even flinching. Like, nope, that's our guy. We're going to roll into 2025 with him.
So do you believe both Mike Gundy and Kyle Whittingham are going to be on the sidelines next year for their respective programs?
I do. It would not surprise me if Whittingham retired just because numbers, longevity. And I think they have a clear handoff in terms of who's going to be the successor there. But that's a not surprised, not expecting, if you hear me, right? I would not be surprised, just given any coach at that point in their career feels like that if they have the jump off ready, if they have everything set organizationally and they've done everything that they want to do and they're at a certain age, they could go.
Yeah, and, we're all kind of waiting on pins and needles here, and Utah also needs to hire an offensive coordinator. What are your thoughts on, I guess what I'll say, Spencer, is a preferred timeline for these announcements in order to make sure that, transfer portal essentially is here, early signing essentially is here. It's pretty clear that Utah has some work to do to make sure that this year was a moment in time and not the new normal. What would you say to the fan base about the preferred timeline to understand who's going to be head coach and who's going to be calling plays?
I think in this day and age, you would rather go sooner than later and get it done so that you can continue whatever momentum you have with various recruiting prospects. I think you'd want everything in place so that you can roll straight into bowl season. There's a lot of different ways to do a transition. You can have the old guy sitting there just like Nick Saban did with Kalen DeBoer. The day Kalen DeBoer quit, or the day Nick Saban quit, he was in the offices making recruiting calls as DeBoer was brought on. So he was still working for Alabama, at least in terms of keeping everyone in the boat as the new guy was coming on. There was a complete departure. Maybe he stays for the bowl game if that happens. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I don't see, and anyone who knows Kyle Whittingham or has watched this program will be nodding their heads when I say this, I don't see them doing anything haphazardly. It seems like they'll do it sooner rather than later if that's an option. And that's for this year or next year, whenever it happens. And that there will definitely be an orderly process to it.
So one of the, I don't know, hate the term narrative, but one of the talking points out here, certainly over the weekend and now into this week since Utah football is finished for the year, is the example of Brigham Young, year one in the Big 12, didn't go well, but they were close in many of the games they ended up losing. Nobody gives a rip. You got to win, period. But their whole mantra is we're not far off, and they showed with a little bit of improvement that they were right. Is the whole learning curve year one, year two in a new conference a real thing? Is that something you fans can really kind of rely upon? I mean, Utah was in the Pac-12 for a decade, and we can get into whether or not that was a good football conference year in and year out, but BYU simply had not played P4 football the way Utah has for a decade. So I don't know how much is there, but should the fan base feel optimistic about lessons learned from year one to year two in the Big 12?
I think so, and I think that's just a matter of teams are always better when they know what to expect, and you can really only know what to expect when you get out there and run the race yourself. Now they'll know what to expect when they face teams. They'll know tendencies. They'll know preferences a little bit better because that's a matter of what you see on film and what you experience in game. What the real experience adds up a lot faster than just looking at it, right? You might not know what it's like to play Kansas State, but you say, oh, well, we have film. Okay, you have film, but there's something to be said for learning in real time what a team wants to do and how they want to do it. And that's what conference play gives you, and that's why the results in out-of-conference games can be so weird for teams playing in a conference because you simply don't have the reps or the experience, and you don't really know the dynamics in terms of who to look for, what they want, how they're going to do it. So I think that's real. I should also mention BYU. You said, well, they were close in a lot of games. This year, BYU reaped the benefits of the other side of that equation, which is they were in a lot of close games, but they won, and that's going to happen. That's just variance. If you sit at the table long enough, you'll hit a couple of hands of blackjack, and they got hot.
Yep, and I want to dig into some BYU stuff in a moment, but I have one more Utah question for you, Spencer, because you and I have not spoke since Utah BYU took place here in Salt Lake. And it's yesterday's news a little bit, but we haven't had you on in a while, so I just wanted to get your take on it. And, after the game, I'm walking home from the stadium, and my phone just blows up. And it was the type of scenario, like, is somebody in trouble? Like, I should really look at my phone. There are a lot of messages coming in. And they all essentially said the same thing or a derivative thereof, which is, did you hear what Mark Harlan just said after Utah BYU ended? And I had not. One of my friends sends me the link to a social media video, and I watched it, Spencer, and I just went, oh dear, oh no. I thought he was going to be in a lot more trouble with Brett Yormark in the Big 12. $40,000 fine, public reprimand. I wonder, from your vantage point, how you digested it and where you're at now a couple weeks later, and provide some context on just how rare it is for an AD to take the podium and go scorched earth on everybody the way Mark Harlan did.
It's very rare for him to do that. And I know that in the heated context of a rivalry game, that kind of stuff's going to happen a little more often. But if I'm an athletic director, do you know when I want you to see me? Never. Never. You should get a letter from me. You should get phone calls from people raising money in my name. And you don't put your face out there. Don't. Just be in the background. There's very little to be gained by this. I'm still baffled by what the motivation was there, right? Like, was it to save Kalani Sitake some bucks? Or I'm sorry, to save Kyle Whittingham some bucks? Maybe that was the thing. I don't know. You know my honest answer? I think he was just mad. People still do things, like I think we really give 3D chess too much credit when somebody does something, you say, oh, yeah, but you can't see the greater strategy. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there who are just winging it. And I think he was just out there winging it because he was mad.
You know what? It's funny you bring up that angle because I honestly, Spencer, from the moment I heard that all week long, the next week doing the show, the one thing that the one thought that would not escape me is why. I was like obsessed with it. And maybe to your point, we're overthinking it, and maybe it is just he was upset in the moment. I wondered if he wanted to show his coach that he had his back like you. I still haven't landed on anything, but what did you think when you heard it in real time? What did you think the ramifications would be?
A fine is what it usually when you impugn the integrity of the officiating or their competence, then they're going to fine you. And $40,000 seems cheap in this context. Maybe because, I don't know, I'm used to SEC size fines for things. You charge a field here, they fine you, $300,000 or whatever. So it was like, oh, I don't know. Yelling at the officials is pretty big. 40 grand. I got to let you know, Utah. That feels like a discount. If that happened again in the future and I knew the price was 40 grand, man, brother, I might pay it depending on how mad I am. Just look at the salary. What percentage? This is a great question. What percentage of your salary would you give up just to tell someone to go to hell?
Oof.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking for most people, I'll get you 2%, but 2 is going to start biting,
Yeah.
And you're going to have to be really mad to get you to 3. So, and I know how much athletic directors make, and I know somebody else probably paid for that fine in one way or another, but you got to be real mad to get up there and bark away 5 to 10% of your salary.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it. All right, you referenced Brigham Young and how this year the pendulum certainly shifted. They were 4-0 in one-score games prior to their 2 losses, Kansas and ASU. So they finished 4-2 in one-score games, but a 10-win season. They beat their rival, Utah. They don't get the Big 12 championship opportunity, but Alamo Bowl, Colorado is what we're reading out here. But there's no other way to spin it, Spencer, than a very successful year for Kalani. If you go back and ask any BYU fan preseason, would you take 10 wins and a win over Utah? Of course, they'd sign on the dotted line, but they also start 9-0 and at one point in the driver's seat to win the Big 12. So we have a little bit of a conflicted BYU fan base out here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'd say this, that in order to win, you got to be lucky no matter when it happens. And in order to go 9-0, you got to be real lucky. So inevitably, that's going to bounce back at one point. And they happen to face 2 teams that were. If you go, okay, well, how do I feel about those losses? How am I as a fan supposed to feel about those 2 losses? My answer is, however you want to. Go ahead and get mad. I'm not your therapist. Express your feelings, right? Go ahead, do whatever you like. But if you were paying me to tell you that, what I would say is this. I would go, well, that Kansas team, way better than people thought, had a lot of bad luck early in the season, got a couple of things together. They were playing their best football over the last 4 or 5 games. No shame in that. Seriously, absolutely no shame that Lance Leipold done an amazing job there. That, to me, there's no such thing as a quality loss for the person who wants to be mad, but I'm going to tell you, it's a quality loss. Additionally, Arizona State, another team peaking at the right time, way better. Kenny Dillingham's done an incredible job there. You are playing – this is the other thing. Who do we lose to? Like, how can we lose to Arizona State? I got to tell you, nobody's like Cam Scatterbo is not losing to too many people, man. That dude is living like the Blue Mountain State college football dream life right now. He's like got a 4.7 40 time. He's got a midriff shirt. And he's got a really great attitude. That's it. That's all that man needs. That and a good head of hair. And that's all they've done all year long is went on the run game, attitude, and excellent, and like being real organized and together. So I don't know what to tell you other than you played a bunch of good teams. You beat almost all of them. And then randomly, your two losses in a row there at the end, just let it go. You had a great year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ultimately, as fans, we get greedy. There's no doubt. But I wonder who you like. Iowa State, Arizona State, and Dallas coming up on Saturday. ASU is a slight favorite. Vegas gives them 2. What do you think happens in the Big 12 championship game?
Tight. Like this one feels real skinny in terms of margins because I just think that Arizona State, with the way that they're able to control the game with their run game, it makes everything they do a little bit easier. And, I think they're a little more dynamic than Iowa State on both sides of the ball. I'm going to go Arizona State there. Like that's my lean. But notice I'm leaning very tentatively because Iowa State, they don't it feels like this team just would not get blown out at this point in the season. Like they play real tight. They play very controlled football. They won 10 games for the first time in program history ever. Go look at how long Iowa State's been playing football. It's over a century. And this is the first time they've ever won 10 games. So you want to talk about already being in bonus time? Iowa State's literally already in bonus time, man.
I actually did not know that. That's pretty wild to think about. Certainly a hell of a year for them. All right, before I set you loose, here's how I'll phrase the question. Which CFP scenario would delight you the most? When we see the rankings, the final rankings, which crazy scenario, and there are a ton out there, would bring you the most holiday joy?
Without listing 12 teams and losing everybody that's currently listening to this by listing all 12 teams that I would have, I'm just going to include a couple of teams that I would like to see in or out. All right, and by in or out, I mean in the first place, and then teams that would make it deep and late in this thing. I would love to see South Carolina get in. This is a wild team. South Carolina is a wild, highly entertaining team with a dynamic defense. Lenore Sellers, a quarterback who week to week, I'm not really sure who he is because he keeps doing different things. One week he'll throw for 300 yards. The next week he'll run for 200. He won't ever do both at the same time. He just kind of does whatever the moment requires, and he's apparently capable of doing it all. And that includes like guys, they have Rocket Sanders and Nick Harbor, just a really interesting array of dudes, and defensive ends like Dylan Stewart and Kennard, who are just capable of eating up whatever you're trying to throw down in terms of pass blocking and run blocking. So I love South Carolina as a dark horse, wild card, get in there and mess someone's life up kind of team. Penn State feels like an inevitable home loss. Like they host a game and then they lose. That just feels like their destiny. That feels like James Franklin football right there. I would also love to see SMU win out in the ACC, get in there and just see what shakes loose because they're real interesting. And finally, I just want everybody to keep an eye on Ohio State. It's very interesting to me what happens to them because they just suffered a loss that I would describe as psychologically damaging on a level few of us can understand. But they're still probably, like it's either them or Texas, the most talented team in there. So I'm intrigued to see if they can mentally recover and what that means for Ryan Day's future there.
Spencer, thanks so much for the time, man. Have a great weekend. I would love to get you on soon, okay?
All right, good deal.
All right, great Spencer Hall. Get him on Twitter at EDSBS. I do think he's doing most of his posting now on Blue Sky, like a lot of people seem to be these days, but really fun podcast, a really good writer, great college football newsletter. Check him out, Channel 6 as well, up on his social media. I want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks. Best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So if you've never gambled on sports before and you don't want to learn all of the ins and outs and the minutiae of over-unders, point spreads, and such, this is a much easier way to do it. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. We'll just use the Jazz as an example. Lowry Markkanen, more or less than 19 points. Colin Sexton, more or less than 3 steals. You guys get the idea. It's really easy to do. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game all season long. All right, let's welcome in Ryan from the Dish Professionals. He's got way more affordable solutions for internet options, cable television, and your wireless situation as well by dialing 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Hey, this is a great time to take advantage of the deals, and especially with the stacked offers that we have. Listen, if you're looking at new TVs, maybe you picked one up for Black Friday, you want us to come out and help you set it up right, get the best television solution out there. Call us up. Take advantage of this 2-year offer. Price is guaranteed. 2 years worth of credits. We'll throw in movie channels and get you installed for free. Plus, how about Netflix free for the next 24 months? Netflix is like a channel. It's built into the system, so we might as well give it to you so you have access to it. And on top of that, guys, we'll throw in dinner at JCW's. Call us and take the upgrade. Get the best system out there. Plus, if you're looking for help with internet, we are really good at this. Guys, we have a half a dozen of internet providers available at our fingertips, and we can hook you up and get you set up with a great internet solution. Lower your bill on that end. Don't be held hostage by the cable bundle that's just killing your pocketbook. And this is where we save people a ton of money. A couple $1,000 on average, really, over a couple of years is what you should expect. And that doesn't include if you want us to help you with your cell phone service, this wireless offer we have, get a brand new iPhone 16 Pro or a Samsung S24 free, no trade-in. And guys, it'll probably be $20 or $30 a month less than what you're currently paying. Plus, you'll probably use the same cell towers. Call us, 424-DISH. Remember, too, if you get a flyer or mailer with a fantastic deal, sometimes DISH sends that out. Use that. Call us. We'll get you that same offer plus the Netflix offer and get you installed next day. 424-DISH, 801-424-3474.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros, Andy Larson from the Salt Lake Tribune. This is our guest coming up next right here on ESPN 700. So I keep forgetting we're on YouTube. We are on YouTube now. We waited. We tried to get ahead of the curve, get on YouTube before anybody else.
I think we did.
But I continue to forget. So during the break, as you know, I stretch. I stretch a lot. And it gets weird. Can our YouTube viewers see me stretching during the break?
That's just dependent on if I get to the commercial. I'm pretty good at hitting the overlay. So
are you?
There's a button.
Are you sure you're good at that?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I know that there has been a commercial. There's definitely been a time or two where you've been in there stretching and whatnot. It's also quick. I mean, you hit your mic and you're out of here. So, it depends on if I'm quick enough hitting all these different buttons.
All right. Well, I got to stay limber. We got 4 hours of this stuff.
We could sponsor it. Stretch Zone.
You know what? Hit
Commercial
us up.
break.
That's a great idea. Get Austin on the phone or one of our sales. Tell him we can sponsor me stretching during the commercial break.
We can go through certain stretches.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yep, I like it. Our next guest is an avid stretcher. I don't know that. Andy Larson on a Monday. Andy, happy Monday. How you doing?
I'm good. What kind of stretches are you doing?
So this past break, I did some calf stretches. Then I did a straight back forward fold for 45 seconds. So to kind of loosen up the back.
I mean, I get it. You like you said, you are sitting there for 4 hours just doing radio. So I feel like it's kind of a healthy thing to do.
Are you indeed an avid stretcher? I don't know this about you.
I am not. No. I wish I was, but I truthfully am not very limber.
Okay. All right. Now I'm glad we got that out of the way. All right. Will Hardy snatching defeat from the jaws of victory last night? ? Andy, your thoughts on the final stanza of the Jazz-Laker game?
Yeah, look, it's been funny to see the national and kind of casual fan reaction to that. It's Will Hardy stole a win from the jaws of a loss, and it's just or a loss from the jaws of a win. It's just that's not what happened. I mean, if Will Hardy doesn't call that timeout, I really do think the Lakers continue to defend that play, and Anthony Davis is there at the rim. And heck, I think even Rui Hachimura gives up a little bit on the defensive end on that play. I don't. It's weird that I guess that the fact that the Sexton layup went in after the whistle was blown is such an obvious. Of course it did, because the Lakers stopped playing defense. Look, when I saw the play coming down, 8 seconds left, once you don't initially call the timeout, I get why, as soon as that play goes sideways a little bit, with Colin dribbling to the left like he did, yeah, I want that timeout. I get why he called it. I think, I was kind of screaming for it with 4 or 5 seconds left. And, I think really the problem is Will is all the way over in front of his bench where he doesn't have any chance of being hurt. And, I think the best coaches in the league, are probably on the floor at half court at that point, trying to call that timeout a little bit earlier. So there are 4 seconds left to actually run a play and actually do something with it. Right. So, I think if you want to criticize Will, I think you can criticize him for that. I think you can criticize him for the play he drew up after the timeout, which was not inspired. But as far as the timeout goes, to me, it's a big nothing burger.
And we had Tom Haberstroh on the program earlier, and I asked him just his thoughts on the dynamic of top 10 picks spending time in the G League. The G League ultimately is there for player development. We all know the deal. Gobert spent a ton of time there. But Cody's a top 10 pick. And, ultimately, because I think we all kind of know what time it is, it's not a big deal that this year he may be spending time in the G League to develop a little bit. But you also want your top 10 pick to show that he has something that might be real. And only time will tell if this stuff is real. It always takes time to become fully baked. But what's the Andy Larson take on not just Cody spending time in the G League, but just that dynamic in general?
So 2 thoughts. One, Rudy actually didn't spend that much time in the G League. He played 8 games down there. So I think that's kind of overblown as a success story of the G League. Rudy Gobert's development did not happen in the G League. And then I'd say also the use of the G League for top 10 picks is a thing that has ramped up a lot in the last 2 years, right? And especially last year's draft where guys like Jarris Walker spent time in the G League and, a number of guys in that class. That being said, like, I think, Cody going down to the G League is a bad sign for where he is right now as a basketball player, right? Like, he, by some measures, was the worst player in the NBA, like kind of rotation level player when he was in the Jazz's rotation, because he was shooting 28% from the field and was airballing threes and was contributing nothing on rebounding and assists and frankly, not that much on the defensive end either. So given that he was struggling so badly and in such a low usage kind of way, I do think it makes sense for the Jazz to send Cody Williams down to the G League to like have him have the ball in his hands and actually run part of the offense and be involved in a way that he just was not involved at all at the NBA level. That being said, I don't think it's a good sign for Cody Williams where he is right now as a player that he is down there, right? Like I think if he had been at all ready in any way, he would still be up at the NBA level getting minutes right now instead of like Johnny Juzang or whoever.
Any guesses on whether or not you think any of the other youngsters, and you can, any of the youngsters, and there's a bevy of them, will spend time down there this year? Any guesses?
It's funny because at the beginning of the season, kind of the guy that was most likely to be down there was Kyle Filipowski, and then he played really well in the NBA, and it's like, well, he might be your most promising of your 6 young players, frankly. So, look, I think Isaiah could benefit from time down in the G League, but he's also like your backup point guard, and I think so long as he's in the rotation and given how, the other point guards on this roster have played, I don't think it makes any sense to send him down when he's getting 20 minutes a night in the NBA anyway.
Please allow me to follow up. Do you believe Kyle Filipowski is really the most exciting or even the potentially most exciting of the 6 young players? Do you believe that to be true?
Dude, yeah, I mean,
oh, dear.
Who else?
Oh, dear.
Right? Like, look, I mean, I'll be honest, like, some of this is by process of elimination, but Cody Williams has been bad, and Isaiah Collier has been bad. Isaiah has been kind of fun in like he's fast and can get to the rim, but he can't shoot at all. He's not a great defender, and he's turning over the ball 6 times per 100 possessions. So that's as much as we criticize Keontae George's turnovers, Isaiah Collier is 50% worse right now. Keontae is just turning over the ball way too much. He's not defending. He's a decent passer and like a decent shooter, but like the percentages aren't good enough to be above replacement level. And like he was a replacement level player last year statistically. He has been that this year. And frankly, like I think he's turnovers have kept the Jazz out of a lot of these games. Now, like some of that's the point. The Jazz aren't trying to win games here, but Keontae does not look like he has taken a step forward. And indeed, like you just can't be that inefficient as a score first guy. And while you're not doing anything else when the ball's not in your hands. So yeah, I'm worried about Keontae George, and then Bryce Sensabaugh, kind of the same thing, except like he doesn't turn the ball over as much, but it's if you're going to be a scorer, you have to be efficient, and he hasn't been so far in his NBA career. And I think he's a little bit better a rebounder than the others, but it's not great. Where Kyle Filipowski, the Jazz put him in the starting lineup right away, and he added something. I mean, really did look like a young version of a Kelly Olynyk with his ability to rebound, pass, defend. Like he was tougher than I think anyone else of those young players has been. And so, yeah, right now, if I'm picking, I'd pick Kyle Filipowski out of those 6 guys.
That's horrible news, Andy. That's bad news, man. That's not good news.
Do you disagree with me?
No, I'm not even saying that I do. I'm just we're doing a little exercise out loud. I'm talking out loud about my inner monologue, and because look, here's where we'll go then. If you stretch your imagination to the best case scenario for a fully developed Kyle Filipowski, what does that look like?
I actually think there's some potential there, right? Like, I think tall, big men who can pass can be really, really good in the NBA. Like, obviously the Jokic is the number 1 guy, and he's not going to be Jokic, but like and Sengun is just one NBA player of the week. Like, look, I get that he's a second-round pick, and needs to improve in a lot of things. But I do think, like, I don't know if he has all-star potential, but I think he has really, really, really good potential given what he's shown, in like 5 NBA games so far.
Porter, is Kyle Filipowski Andy Larson's Tony Bradley? I think we need to save. I was hoping that he would go all-star like TJ did with the Jared Butler. But is Kyle Filipowski going to be Andy Larson's Tony Bradley?
I think he might be better. But does he last 10 years?
Okay, so should we get a steak dinner on this? Are you willing to say that Kyle Filipowski makes one all-star game in his career?
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, look, no, I mean, I'm not. And look, I think Kyle being the best of the bad bunch says more about the bad bunch. But, like, I do actually think Kyle Filipowski has some real potential to be, like, a really good NBA starter. Like an Al Horford level starter. Is that crazy? I mean, I know Al Horford made an all-star game.
He did make an all-star game. Man, if he's Al Horford, that's a massive win. And look, I'm not – I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that I don't like him. I'm not saying there aren't things to get excited about. But in order for this thing to work, we have to have a Hayward, Mitchell, somebody out of this group has to show that they have that potential and that it's real. And I'm to the point now where I'm straight up concerned about Keontae. Like, I think we all thought he was the guy. But, we were talking about Walker last year as a guy that did not show a year or two jump. And at this point, look, it is 20 games. It's no longer like 2 or 3 games. Thanksgiving in pro basketball is when front offices get together and say, okay, what do we have? We got a couple of months to decide if we want to move off guys. What do we have? And I'm to the point now, Andy, where I'm straight up concerned about Keontae as opposed to like questioning whether or not, this is a moment in time. The sample size is big enough to show at this point he's not a lead guard in pro basketball.
Yeah, and I think that's the deal with Keontae is what role do you play him in, and then what does he bring to that role, right? So if he is a point guard, then he cannot turn the ball over as much as he does and has, right? Like, simply cannot. But it's not only just the turnovers, though. It's that he's not getting the team into the offense. It's the first action is coming with 10 on the shot clock way too often. The decision making hasn't been there, and so it's like. And that's totally fair because Keontae has not been a point guard growing up, right? Like in his high school and college career was not a point guard. But then you move him to the 2, and I understand why the Jazz tried him at the 1, given what I'm about to say. At the 2, the only thing he brings is on-ball scoring, is shooting, especially catch and shoot threes and, kind of some pull-up threes as well, which I think he's good at and can pass a little bit, but he's not. He's a really bad defender. He's not rebounding. And, if you are going to be just a shooting guard, you need to be like JJ Redick level for this to work, right? Like, or else you are like you're just a guy, right? You're Seth Curry, you're Trey Burke, you're just a bench combo guard. And maybe that's what Keontae is. I think there were times where we kind of hoped that he could be more, but the balance of evidence says that, yeah, it's more likely than not that he's a bench scoring combo guard than a guy you build around.
I'm still stuck on the Filipowski thing, just because. And again, I'm not even offering a dissenting vote here. I'm just kind of processing this in real time, and ultimately, if he pans out to be a high level starter at that point in the draft, it's an absolute win. But ultimately, do you see anybody besides Markkanen with potential, fully baked star, kind of written on their pathway if they maximize who they are? Because I think we all thought it was Keontae. Cody's the highest pick. It hasn't looked good. I mean, if you expanded your imagination, because again, in order for them to be really good, one of these young players has to start to look better than they have. And I don't know how much of this is intentional. I don't know how much of it is playing with other young players. I don't know how much of it is just, hey, we're just going to go all in on the being bad stuff. But if I remove Filipowski, is there anyone else that you've seen with moments that you feel could be real consistently if given enough time?
I mean, this is the problem, right? It's like it's all odds, right? Like, there's still a 5% chance, 10% chance, whatever you want to say, that Keontae George becomes, the player that he maybe could have been, or like that Jazz fans imagined that he was last year. And, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. He could turn a corner, he could figure something out, and all of a sudden is a really good player. The problem is, we're talking about odds here, and we're talking about what is kind of likely to happen versus what is unlikely to happen. And, sometimes, players do come out of nowhere and set the world on fire, right? Mo Williams scored 5 points a game in his rookie year, and then all of a sudden became, again, an all-star level player. And maybe that's Keontae's kind of best case scenario. It's another shooting guard, kind of off ball, scored a lot of points, knew how to play the game, was a pretty good player, right? Mo Williams is a good player. Maybe that's kind of best case scenario. And I think you can kind of go through that with all these guys, right? Bryce Sensabaugh, great catch and shoot guy. Maybe he figures out the defensive end. Maybe he loses a little bit more weight, becomes more athletic, and all of a sudden is a really nice scorer. Taylor Hendricks, we haven't mentioned yet, recovers from the leg break and the ankle and everything else, and all of a sudden and takes another leap while he's out, and all of a sudden is Jaden McDaniels, kind of in the way that the Jazz envisioned him to be. Kyle Filipowski maybe becomes Al Horford. Isaiah Collier maybe becomes, I can't think of a comp right now, but a really good scoring point guard who can pass a little bit. You can come up with paths for all these guys. Cody Williams becomes Jalen Williams, but it's the odds there, right? We're talking those outcomes are less likely than them falling out of the NBA, frankly. And yes, so right now in the rebuild, you have to look at, you can still give those guys chances because you're not costing yourself anything. But if you're being real about when the rebuild is going to come to fruition, you're not talking about next year or 2 years down the road. You're talking when the new draft picks that you haven't drafted yet are ready to play. And that's, just being honest about what the mathematical odds are. And maybe one of the 6 guys does end up popping and gets to their career potential. But, the odds that everyone hits their highest ceiling are low.
All right, let's move off the youngsters, and we'll kind of stay in the space. It's not like Walker's old, but Walker continues to be a guy that I'll watch closely because it's year 3 under Will. And this will kind of be a case study as to whether or not this developmental stuff is going in the right direction, certainly in a vacuum with only one player. But if you had to write if Walker's parents came and sat down to the Trib office and said, give me a progress report on my son through the first portion of the season, what would that progress report sound like?
Yeah, really, really good stuff. A plus grade. Look, he's not the best center in the world. He's not the best rim protector. He's a top 5 rim protector in the world, though. His block numbers are legitimately crazy. And then the rest of his game has gotten a lot better this year, right? And he's been extremely unfocused on. He's not trying to shoot anything. He's not trying to dribble. He's just kind of doing the Rudy Gobert stuff. He's screening a whole lot better. He's so much stronger on the glass. He's much better finishing around the rim. He's making second and third efforts for loose balls in a way he wasn't last year. He's diving on the floor for stuff. It's clear that he is significantly stronger, both lower and upper body, and it's making a difference in so many facets of his game. I think he's developed a lot. Not going to be an all-star player, I don't think, but is a really capable, quality center you want on your roster, and I think right now it's probably the second best Jazz player.
So I didn't think I'd be asking you about Johnny Juzang, and here's the deal. I really liked Johnny in college. I thought he'd be a better pro, but I wasn't expecting him to carve out this role. He's played double-digit minutes in 13 of 15 games. And look, I'm not making this anything other than what it is, which I think is somewhat of a pleasant surprise for both the player and maybe the team. Is there anything you've seen from Johnny in this role that he clearly has carved out that encourages you as to whether or not he can play minutes for a team that's serious about winning at some point?
At some point, sure. Look, it's kind of the role that they've envisioned for him and that Johnny's embraced is just as a sharpshooter who takes 80% of his shots from beyond the 3-point line, and I think he's shooting 38% right now, and that's pretty good. On pretty high volume. Still needs to get stronger. Still needs to be better at the defensive end of things, but there is a role there, again, for him to be a bench shooter in down the road. And I think that is a success given that he's undrafted and has been 3 years in a two-way spot for him to be like a potentially useful rotation guy on potentially a good team. Like, he's not as good as Peyton Pritchard, but kind of playing that role, I could see it somewhere. And I don't think it's something that Jazz are going to get like a lot in trade value for Johnny Juzang or anything. But, for a 4-year contract near the minimum, he deserves that. And so that's one of the nice things on this Jazz roster.
And he allowed you and I to kill 6 minutes in a segment about the Jazz. So, Johnny, thank you, because ultimately it's going to be hard to cover this team. I don't know what to ask you, man. I mean, I guess we'll move over to this. There's a report out there that I don't know how credible it is, but it's on the internet, so it's probably true. Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, are in trade discussions right now around the NBA. Again, who knows? And it's only November, but part of me believes this team is like set up perfectly just to lose the rest of the season. Like if your best player is John Collins, that's kind of all you need to know. And so I don't know that it makes sense to do a whole lot, but I suppose if you can continue to, stack draft capital and assets, maybe you kick the tires. Do you think we're going to see an active Jazz trade deadline prior to, the point where players can't be moved anymore?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is going to be the same thing as it has been on all those guys, which is you've still got years left on the deal. And they're probably making more than you would want, than like the good teams can give up salary matching back for is really the problem. So, like, John Collins has been really pretty good this season, and I think could help some teams, right? Like, looking for a 4, someone who's athletic, someone who can rebound really well and shoot. Like, I think there's an upside there, except for that he makes $26 million. And in order for the Jazz to trade out $26 million to a good team, they have to send $26 million back in salary. And it's hard to see what the matching contract is. I mean, I think there's some potential, like we're talking 1 or 2 contracts around their league that might be matching possibilities, but it's not great. I mean, and then you're kind of talking about the same things with Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson, maybe on a lesser degree, but also they're probably lesser players right now. And again, the good teams probably do have ball in hand guys that they're already giving possessions to, and instead are looking for kind of role players to put around them rather than, again, Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson types where they need the ball in their hands to be effective. So, I think more likely is they end up not being traded, but if the Jazz have the opportunity to trade one of those guys for draft capital, you bet they're going to jump on it for sure.
All right, before I set you loose, the returns of the Mitchell and Gobert trade start to come in this offseason. And, to start the year, I felt like both those picks were going to be in the 20s, and they still might. But how real do you think Minnesota's struggles are? And do you think there is a chance that pick could be something pretty beneficial as early as this offseason?
Yeah, I do. Look, I wrote about this about a week ago. I think, the Minnesota losing streak to me is there are some real elements to it, right? Like, I think they probably end up making the playoffs, but it's possible that pick doesn't end up in the 20s, and I think that is probably best early case scenario for the Jazz. Look, I think Rudy Gobert is not quite the defender he once was, and is still very good, and yet as a Jazz fan, I think you have to be excited about the fact that they extended him for about $30 million a year for the future, because I don't know how well he ages. Joe Ingles is not really a contributor anymore, and Mike Conley maybe has lost a quarter step, although he looks pretty good. The biggest problem, obviously, is Julius Randle and how him and Dante DiVincenzo have kind of struggled to adapt in a team-centric offense, which is kind of pretty different than kind of the the Jalen Brunson show that they played with in New York. So I think there are some real chemistry issues there. I think there's possibility that it works out. Obviously the first year of Rudy Gobert, Minnesota Timberwolves also had chemistry issues. Kyle Anderson famously punched Rudy Gobert, and yet they got over it and became a really good basketball team last year, right? And I think it could go either way, right? Like, it could go that, hey, maybe Cat was a piece tying them together, or this isn't a perfect roster by any means, and there's kind of not enough to go around, and it's really shallow as well of a roster. They don't have a good bench. If you get one or two big injuries, then maybe the Wolves struggle and the Jazz have a good pick.
All right, Andy. Appreciate the time today, buddy. Have a good week. We'll chat soon, okay?
Sorry to stress you out. That's just one man's opinion.
I know, man. I know. Andy Larson, Salt Lake Tribune. It's harsh stuff, but I don't know that he's wrong, which just makes it hard to watch. That's all. And ultimately, hard things eventually, hopefully, they pay their dividends over time, and hopefully this will, but it's just going to take a while. Anyway, let's bring in Ryan from the Dish Professionals. 3 very affordable options for internet access, cable television, and your wireless situation as well. If you give them a call at 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
This is such a fun promotion. Love that we can throw in extras on top of extras. Call us today. Take advantage of the upgrade. Get the best DVR out there. Biggest out there. Fast receiver. Pause, instant replay. Auto records your games. Auto records the locals for you, which is such a nice feature. Even if you don't want to watch it, it just keeps it for 8 days and drops off. But this is all brought together because it's got a 2 terabyte hard drive, which is the biggest hard drive out there, which can hold thousands and thousands of hours of content. Call us up. Get upgraded. Take advantage of the 2-year offer. We'll throw in movie channels, have you installed for free, and how about Netflix free for the next 2 years? It's like a channel on Dish along with YouTube and Amazon Video Prime. So it gives you all that access, and so might as well give it to you free. Call us and take that. Get set up. Guys, this is where you save $70 to $100+ a month. And also we can help you with internet. Don't be held hostage by your cable company and their bundle where they're like, well, if you drop your internet, then your bill's going to go way up. There's so many other internet providers out there. Good products, super fast, and cheap, $50 a month. Right now we have one, you get a $150 gift card, or you can take advantage and get a free TV. Call us today, 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. Got to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks before we catch a break. Porter, stand at attention here. I just put in my Prize Picks lineup for Monday Night Football. Okay, you ready to hear it?
I'm ready.
We're going rapid style, okay? So all you do is pick more or less on player stat projections. I have Cortland Sutton, more than 69.5 receiving yards.
Ooh.
What do you think?
Doable, but toss-up.
He's been good over the past few weeks. I have David Njoku, more than 45.5 receiving yards.
Okay, another one.
You don't like it.
I don't hate it.
All right. I've got Devon Vele, more than 24.5 receiving yards.
I like that one.
Homer. Nick Chubb, less than 4.5 receiving yards. They never throw it to him.
Fair.
Then that's it.
You have to get all of those. This is a parlay.
If I get all of those, I win up to 100 times my money.
There we go.
I'm just showing the listeners how easy it is. You don't have to diminish my picks. Jeez. Well, when I win, I'm going to brag tomorrow. So that's how easy it is. All you need to do is download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly. After you play your first $5 lineup, it's a lot of fun. So download the app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly. After you play your first $5 lineup, Prize Picks, run your game all season long. All right, Drive at 5, Spencer Hall. We'll say goodnight at 6 for the Craig Smith Coaches Show right here on ESPN 700. All right, what's going on? Drive at 5 time. Your commute home on this Monday evening starts right now. It's been a pretty lovely December day outside, about 45, 48 degrees. The sun was shining here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah, as it is every single day. It's good to have you along for the ride. We have Spencer Hall coming up, one of our favorites to talk college football with. University of Utah football season ended on Friday in Orlando with a win over UCF. Of course, we've been talking about that game a lot today, a lot about the season that is now behind us and the offseason that really is here, starting right now. Stevenson Sylvester joined us earlier. Some good stuff from Sly on Utah football. So kind of been in that space today. Gave you our final Big 12 power poll, which was sad for a lot of reasons. BYU, according to the bowl projections, looks like they're headed to the Alamo Bowl to take on Deion Sanders in Colorado. That's not official. Only time will tell. But you could do a lot worse than that if you're Brigham Young, because Deion brings eyes. BYU as a brand certainly is healthy. Be a ton of fans down there, I would imagine, in San Antonio, December the 28th. But big-time exposure and a good payout. It's a good bowl game. It's not a throwaway bowl. Now, it's not the Big 12 championship, and as we've been talking about all day, kind of an odd juxtaposition for Cougar fans today, where 10-2 and a win over your rival is a space you did not think you'd be living in this year. But that's who you are. And there's no argument that that is a win. It's a massive win this year for Kalani and Jay Hill and Aaron Roderick and everybody down there in Provo. There's no debating that. Now, you go 9-0. And as fans, we simply get greedy. That's what we do. And you start to dream about big things. You start to change your expectations. It's interesting because both Utah and BYU this year are left wondering what could have been based off of what was in front of them. Now, in much different ways, right? So Utah starts the season as the Big 12 favorite in Vegas, according to the media, and not just local homers, national media members too. Big 12 Media Days, Utah's picked to win the Big 12 championship. The most popular Big 12 championship game pick in Vegas preseason was Utah-Oklahoma State. They went a combined 2-16 in conference. Oklahoma State didn't even win a conference game. So this conference, year one of the Big 12, completely flipped on its head. So for Utah, you're the favorite, right? And yes, we can be reductive about health as we have been here and has been discussed in other places, but it can't just be that. For the first time in Coach Whittingham's career as the head coach of Utah, they lose 8 straight games. It was wild to watch. And certainly 7 straight games, Nobody saw that coming. And you do salvage it with a good win against a fine Big 12 team and UCF with Luke Batari at quarterback and some cool moments like Mekhi Bernard going over 1,000 yards. He's the 17th running back in Utah football history to do that, the first since Tavion Thomas in 2021. So in a vacuum, certainly fun moments. We'll always look back and say, wow, an average offense, a mediocre, a less than average offense, a mediocre offense puts Utah right in the mix to win the Big 12. It just does. And that's what stings about what we just experienced. So off season ahead. But for BYU, even though this season, that's what makes this conversation odd, right? Even though the season is simply a win. And by the way, there's a period at the end of that sentence. It just is. You can't spin it any other way. But we'll always look back and wonder what could have happened. And for me, it's the Kansas game. You hang 13 at home against Kansas when you still have everything in front of you to play for. Yes, losing to ASU hurts, but that's a good team, and it's on the road, right? So 9-0. At one point, Utah's the favorite, and then the pendulum completely shifts down south. And on a Tuesday night, when the CFP rankings are out, at one point, BYU was on the 3 line. They weren't the third-ranked team in the country, but that was going to be potentially their seeding if they simply finish what they started. I thought Kalani's comments to the media after the Houston win on Saturday and then followed it up with some comments today were really good and very honest and essentially said what the kids would say, the quiet part out loud. Like, you can't rely on Lady Luck every single game. You can't test the fates every single game. And even though BYU, it was weird. Like, even though BYU was winning and answering every question that was thrown at them, there were very legitimate question marks about, all right, what does this look like when they're not on the right side of all these bounces? Can they overcome that type of adversity? They did, by the way, against Houston. I think it was 3 lost fumbles. Didn't look great to start out with. They start the season 4-0 in one-score games. How sustainable is that? I'm not saying you have to rip teams apart every weekend, but at some point, if you test the fates like that, it's simply going to be on the other side. You can't continue to rely on that week in and week out. I'm not saying they're not good. They are. And they deserve the love they were getting because they started out 9-0. But they finished 4-2 in one-score games because at some point, the way they were testing the fates was simply going to come back to bite them. So they finish essentially third in conference, 10-2. Again, they beat their rival. All of those things are good. But winning championships, it's going to sound so reductive and simplistic, but it's really hard. It's really hard. So I bring that up because when you're in a spot to potentially do that and you don't jump through that window, you don't capitalize on that moment, those are the seasons that really sting worse and linger longer. Shout out BYU, Provo, my people, Swig, etc. Those are the seasons that sting years down the line when you were that close and you didn't run through the tape. Now, Utah season stings. It just does. I'm not saying it doesn't. But when all of the expectations fly out the window after like 5 or 6 weeks, it still sucks. And the problem is Utah football this year wasn't just about lack of wins. I mean, that's the bottom line. Always is, always has been. There were too many games that were just flat boring. Sorry if that sounds harsh. But I'm on the sidelines for these home games, like the Arizona loss at home, the TCU loss at home. Those were 2 boring football games. They just were. So it's not just the fact they weren't winning, the product for a fan base that's asked to buy season tickets, donate and support the new reality of college football with NIL endeavors, buy food, bev, merch, all the things you're asked to invest in the team, what the community asks for in return, is an intriguing product, something that's fun to watch week in and week out. The program goes about their business the right way. And if you build habits and compound them daily, it's inevitable that results will come. But sometimes you just can't control the ultimate result. But all you can control is every day continuing to do the right things. And I do think Kyle has built a program that does that, which leads me to conclude this is more of a moment in time as opposed to the new normal. I don't think we're in for another rough year. Now, the caveat is, and has been for 2 years, what does the team look like when everybody's available to play? And at some point, we have to be able to ask questions. Why are these kids getting hurt all the time? This isn't a weekend. This isn't a 1 week issue or a 2 week issue. Like 2 straight years. The coaching staff has been up against it because they don't have their players. It is really that simplistic. Now, I can't just lay it all on the feet of injuries because you have to figure out what else is there. Are you not prepared? Are you not as deep as we thought you were? But again, it's not just 1 or 2 injuries. You're down to your 3rd or your 4th, or sometimes, shout out Luke Patari, your 5th string quarterback. So now we wait to hear, and I thought we'd get some news potentially prior to the end of the show. We got about 43 minutes left in the show. About who's going to be the head coach. I still think it's Kyle next year. That's not breaking news. I have no inside information. His final few weeks of media just struck me as a guy that said, not like this. Nope, not like this. I don't know that. But that's got to be top of mind now. And my guess is the people that are in a need-to-know situation, they already know. I doubt Kyle would put his coaching staff or anybody up there in a situation where they have to guess about his plans unless he genuinely doesn't know. I mean, he was asked about it on Saturday. Of course he wasn't, on Friday. Of course he wasn't going to announce his intention following a game. So he deflected, but I thought we'd hear something potentially today. I'm sure we'll get something this week. So that has to be top of mind. Then, of course, it's the situation involving the new offensive coordinator. There's no imminent news. As of right now, there's some names that have been thrown out there, but we don't have anything as far as an announcement goes. I think one of the candidates that everybody was kind of honed in on was Ben Arbuckle, who did a great job this year at Wazoo. Well, he signed a 3-year deal with Oklahoma today to be their offensive coordinator, so he will not be coming to Salt Lake City. Transfer portal news, not a lot with Utah, but of course a lot of players going to hit the transfer portal starting today throughout the course of the week. Got to have your head coach, got to know who that is, got to have the OC, got to have that dialed in, and then you have to start adding pieces to make sure that this was an anomaly and not the rule. All right, coming up on the other side, we'll talk more college football. One of my favorites, Spencer Hall, stops by. We're going to say goodnight at 6 o'clock in time for the Craig Smith Coaches Show. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. This is a great song. This is a decent choice by you to finish the program. Haven't heard this. Give me the name of the song. Give me the artist.
Roy Orbison, of course.
Yep.
This one's You Got It. You got it.
1960s, 70s? When do you write this?
I want to say 70s, but not totally certain.
Good song. Good song.
Some real good ones from Mr. Orbison.
All right, Advanced Window Products is the #1 rated window company in Utah. They're locally owned. Sales and installation are in-house. No middleman markup. Nate Orchard, mayor of Sac Lake City, still to this day. My buddy Jake Weber. These are great people, come from awesome families. They're local. They want to take care of our community, and they have financing available. Take advantage of the fall special right now. It's $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. Beat the rush. Order today from the factory to your front door. 8 weeks or less. 801-850-9100 and online at advancedwindows.com. Craig Smith Coaches Show comes your way coming up next. Then it's time we will join the Monday Night Football game in progress, the Browns and the Broncos. So stay tuned for that. You know, I was thinking, clearly I was the Turkey Bowl MVP now that I've thought about it all show long because – you know, we were down 1 touchdown, and it was the final drive. And it was next touchdown wins because we had to go in for dinner. And so I split one of my nephews out wide right. He's 6. And then had the other nephew in a slot who's 8.5. And I had them run the Y2 spider banana where they come together, and then they both run post to the corner of the end zone.
Wow.
I caught my 6-year-old nephew right in the corner, and it was a beautiful catch. He beat my other nephew, George, who's only 2. So, like, that wasn't – but
mismatch.
Yeah.
Get the guy off the field.
But as the quarterback, I spotted the mismatch because George is 2. He can barely walk. I knew that my nephew, Christian, was going to be able to pass him into the corner, and I made that read. So I think I'm the MVP.
I mean, if you get man coverage and the guy can barely, walk with tying his shoes.
He pooped
anything.
He pooped his pants prior to one defensive possession. I mean, like
you got to make the ID. You got to attack.
I almost just cut him there. Like, you're not potty trained and you're out here trying to shut me down, the quarterback. So, I mean, look, I'll stay it. I'll put it wherever I want out here.
And you're out there throwing dimes and orchestrating pre-snaps.
Yeah, and some of them can barely even formulate sentences, but I led us to 42 points. So I'm the MVP.
I have no argument there.
What'd you do for the any fun Larson family stories over the Thanksgiving holiday?
It was pretty low key. We don't do like the football in the morning tradition, but we do get together. Most of the family's somewhat local.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the food is like most people. The focus on Thanksgiving. My grandmother was like a caterer. She's an actual chef. So
is she in charge?
Ooh, it's good.
Oh, nice. When did planting the flag lead to consistent brawling in college football? This felt like a new level to me. And look, let's be clear. I don't know that I'd be down with that either. But we're watching the college football slate because we wanted to see how the Big 12 was going to turn out. So we're tuned in, K-State, Iowa State, right. Arizona, ASU. And every time they broke to a game, it was another highlight of a brawl on the field after a flag planting incident. This feels new to me.
A lot of it. More. And listen, I think it's silly, but I've always grown up like from a player standpoint. If a team does that, you fight them on site. Like if they do something on your field, we saw it. Emmett's 49ers Cowboys, right? Remember when I think it was George Teague just took T.O. out at the Star because he kept celebrating on the Star. It's just it's a respect thing where, yeah, you beat us. We shake hands at the 50-yard line. You don't plant our flag there. I think it's silly to fight about that, but that is kind of the football unspoken rule, right? We're going to fight you if you do it. I think it's silly, but I also think that we watch and we now have this generation, Spence, of kids who are like 17, 18, 19, who grew up on social media where it's like cool to jab at your opponent. It's kind of almost a disrespect contest of who can be out there the most. And I don't really like how it flows over into sports, but we're now seeing like these are the kids that grew up in that generation streaming online, and instead of like talking to someone, you're trying to annoy them so that you can get likes on your account. Like these are the kids that are now playing these sports. I don't know that it's not all of them, but that's part of it. Is I think we're in a place where there's different cultures that are now kind of going through it, and different generations and different a lot of differences. But ultimately, you can't be doing that over a football game.
A lot of chaos, man. Pepper spray used, which is just next level bizarre. Man, just glad that nobody got hurt worse than they did, but it seemed like a chaotic college football Saturday. All right, the Craig Smith Coaches Show comes your way next. I want to tell you about my friends at Clearwater Distilling. It's the only distillery in Utah County open on Sundays. Try their limited release Wednesday whiskey batch number 2. It's out right now. You can get their spirits in state liquor stores online or take a trip to the distillery. You can grab some booze and check them out at clearwaterdistilling.com. Their location in Pleasant Grove is 564 West, 700 South. All right, Porter, what comes our way on a Tuesday show?
On a Tuesday show, we'll talk a little college football still. Kyle Bonagura joins the program as he does each and every week, talking some Big 12, NBA Daily Assist with our guy Tim McMahon. We're doing a little reverse remote with our guys at Advanced Windows, so we'll chat some football with Jake Weber and Nate Orchard, as you mentioned, the mayor of Sac Lake City. And Dave Fox, chatting with him, catching up with Dave Fox after a couple weeks of not being able to make it work with Dave.
All right, there you go. So that'll be a fun Tuesday show. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you to Stevenson Sylvester, as well as Tom Haberstroh, Spencer Hall, and Andy Larson for any of the sound you may have missed from the show. Head on over to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. The app is the ESPN 700 app. That's available in the App Store, the Google Play Store for free. And finally, for what we do in our space for 4 hours every afternoon, check out our podcast page. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a rating and a review. If you say nice things, give us all the stars. It actually helps. For Porter, I'm Spence. Say goodnight. Craig Smith Coaches Show. Then Monday Night Football. That's coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700.